we can start the last one. Where am I looking? Right there. Okay, so our last one started, okay. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting on the 15th of June, 2026. I'd like to start us off in a good way by recognizing and acknowledging both the Esquimalt and Songhees nations, honors traditional territories. We live, we learn, and we do our work together this evening. Trustees, may I look to you for a mover? I know we have a number of amendments to our agenda tonight. And so I think perhaps to be a little more efficient, go through the amendments that I know we have to make. And then I'll look for a mover and a seconder. And you can let me know if there's additional amendments that need to be made. So first amendment to the agenda is to swap A5A and B around. So A5B becomes the new A5A, and A5A becomes the new A5B. The second amendment is to have E1E move up the agenda to follow A5, which is community presentations. So that's moving E1E up the agenda to follow A5, community presentations. And Secretary Treasurer, just slow me down if we need to grow a little support. The third amendment is to add a trustee questions section to follow superintendent's report. And then the final amendment that I'm aware of is to add an item under new business. And that's just one item under new business. One item under new business. And can I ask the vice chair the title of that new item? Yes, it's a budget motion. Okay. So the new item under new business will be budget motion. Okay, so barring any additional amendments, trustees, may I ask for a mover and a seconder? Moved by trustee Painter, seconded by trustee Carmichael. Any discussion? Right, hearing none.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Are you able to hear the voice of the interpreter?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Any discussion, trustees? All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the amendments to the agenda for this evening with a show of hands, and that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Secretary Treasurer, did you get everything okay, or do we need to go back and just clarify the order of anything?
I don't think I got it. You gonna make the motion.
I'm sorry.
So you just approved the amendments?
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so now we're looking for a mover and a seconder to move the agenda as amended. And that is trustee Carmichael and seconded by trustee Gamble. All those in favor of the agenda as amended with the show of hands, trustees? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to approval of the minutes. We have minutes from April 20th, 2026. Trustee? Did someone like to move those ones? Thank you, trustee Bio, and a seconder? Seconded by trustee Kwan. Okay, any discussion in relation to the April 20th, 2026 minutes? All right, singing, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this isn't one that,
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Are you able to hear me?
Just pause for a moment, we can hear you. Josh, did you wanna? Or do we?
Probably all the irrigation on, so I think we may need to record and post later and provide an irrigation.
How would you suggest that we proceed? This is, full speaking, I'm gonna send a media progress, this is one, can the interpreters on Zoom meeting hear what's being said?
No.
Um. Yeah. That's what we want to do. Yeah, we'll give you a moment to, get set up. Can't project the Zoom meeting at the moment.
I can project the meeting, they can't hear the meeting right now through Zoom. I'm not sure if it's too quiet with the microphones, the limited microphones we have in the room. But they can't hear us speaking.
Josh, is there any technical support that we can offer in order to, this?
They're now logged.
Deb, can you hear me if I talk this close? Okay, so how come they can't hear?
Because of who's muted.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. So you can hear me now, which is great. We hear nothing from the room. And that's for both interpreters. If you remove us from the interpreting channel and just allow us to join the meeting, that may be helpful. And then if you assign us co-host, we can pin both of the deaf participants.
Sorry.
Post is here.
Can you take the interpreters out of the interpreter channel? Put them back in this?
They are now, yeah, and they're co-hosts.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience while we sort out this technical issue.
And we like projected.
Yes, please. Yes.
Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, 1, 2, 3. So you hear us, but we hear nothing.
You can't hear anything?
Testing, testing.
nothing. Nope.
It could be a speaker setting issue on the other end, so I'm not sure if they toggle their audio in the bottom left corner.
Oh. Both of us, I have my headphones on, I can hear. Yeah. We could hear before. And just recently.
When we first joined, we heard the room. And then when we were put in the interpreting channel, we no longer hear the room.
It looks like you have the microphone.
Both of us were on Zoom meetings earlier today, as early as 1 hour before, and it was fine.
The microphones that we're using are in the room here and they're unmuted, so it should be, the mics are on in the room. For the room.
And they disabled our mics too. Like he disabled mine. I can't even turn mine on at all.
And so the second
The interpreter.
interpreter has no ability to actually use her mic. That's been disabled. My microphone is being broadcast to the room.
Is this a presentation setting? I know in some cases that
When I test my speaker,
in a large environment, everyone is automatically muted from the other.
Yes.
Same.
All right, I guess we log off and log back in.
Okay. Sure, let's give that a try.
Recorded meetings, happens or not. After proper settings. You don't have proper settings.
Okay,
Yeah.
and how will that affect the presentation? May I just ask, how that will affect the presentations, the community presentations?
Presentations in person or in. So
It's a combination of both remote presenting and.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. If anyone's speaking in the room, I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, testing, this is Nicole Duncan, board chair, can you hear me? Okay. So it's subject to a technical solution, what's being suggested is that, closed captions would be on. The meeting will be live streamed. And, that's probably, well, at this point, we don't have a technical solution to offer. Is there anything else that you can suggest that we could try? Okay.
Chair, is it possible for you to join the meeting and use the microphone from your laptop?
I can certainly try.
The alternate I would have is that as many people as possible would then join the meeting, and if those microphones are then functional, in order to allow the speakers to hear, we would then use our microphones. Because my interpretation was that the ASL interpreter will be there, but your microphone is functional on your laptop.
And in the meantime, I'll join and see if that works.
Absolutely, you'll have to mute when you are not speaking.
Deb, can you hear me? Deb, you can't hear me. eh? No, audio's not functioning.
Are you hearing anything at all?
So I could hear recently, but now not because we're connected on FaceTime, so I think we have to be on FaceTime. But I can't turn on my mic, so I can't interpret if someone signs.
Right.
So I can hear, but I can't.
And okay, I think this is gonna be feel it possible to apply. I wonder if we get for get first cell phone. And I was thinking, you know, that this is really huge. You don't have problems like this with that phone. I love my mom. Yeah, and I was just actually at a conference in New Zealand, and this kind of stuff didn't come up. And so Michael suggested that, why don't we, sorry, changing that here. See if we can get.
Just figuring out which phone we're going to be using, who's going to be on Zoom, also doing
Two tasks right now.
basic patients.
Hello, Deb Russell. Hello,
Hi, Deb, can you hear us?
I can hear you speaking.
Okay, we're double echoed now.
Mhm.
So Deb, I wonder if you mute on Zoom, I think, maybe.
Thank you.
Okay, let's just test this one more time, and thank you so much for all of your patience. We'll certainly start those issues, issue flexibility.
Okay.
We understand.
So we're gonna proceed and consolidate and then start going on, okay? Okay, so we are trustees at A3 approval of the minutes of the April 2026 regular board meeting. Secretary Treasurer, would you just remind me if we had a mover and a seconder? I believe we did. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Trustees, are there any amendments to the minutes that anyone would like to move or any discussion of the minutes before I call the question? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes for the show of hands? And opposed? And abstaining. Okay, so that's all in favor with trustee Quan abstaining. Thank you, trustees. We're moving on to A4, business arising from minutes. Is there any business arising from minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to move us forward to our community presentations portion of our agenda this evening. We are going to start with the presentation called The Establishment of Service Delivery Model that guarantees consistent, qualified, and effective access to education for Dutch students. Presenters, I'm just going to go over a few rules with you. So for this section of our agenda, we have 5 minutes. I actually timed the presentations. I will let you know when we have 1 minute left. So excuse the interruption that I've done. So whenever you are ready, I will turn the floor over to the first presenter, and if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself. Before starting.
I think that's.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, Kathy from the phone.
Of course, yeah, and feel free to grab your
So my name is Brian Tennant. I'm a parent of a deaf student in ST61. And I'm here supported by my wife, yes, my baby this evening as well. We really truly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today and to inform you of the experience that we've had within the district over the last 3 years and what will continue to happen over the next 10 years if things don't change. So our daughter here, she's there. She didn't choose this, she was born this way. And this is what makes her special. So we knew from the beginning that ASL would be her first language. So we learned and we taught her at the same time that we were learning. We did this because access to language is important. It's actually the foundation of everything, especially her education. Now, this is so important, in fact, that we spent every summer in Vancouver so that she could attend a deaf preschool, where she was accepted, supported, nurtured, encouraged. She thrived in this environment, and the teachers described her as smart, very social and deeply empathetic. She was always the first one to notice when kids were being left out and did her best to include them. Now, when she joined kindergarten in ST61, everything changed. She started to be labeled as disruptive, difficult to direct, nosy, pushy, impatient. We were told to work on her behavior to help her understand that she needed to be more patient. What could have so drastically changed in such a short amount of time? Access. One thing. That's the only thing that changed was her access. For the first time in her life, she was in an environment that she did not have access. Her EA did not have sufficient Excel to be working in an education setting. And there were frequent absences that left me without anything, because no backup was in place. And what was almost worse is we were asked to come into the classroom so that she could have at least a modicum of support. Now, her behavior was never the problem. It was the fact that a 5-year-old child, was asked to make peace with being ignored and willfully excluded. It was just her way of advocating for access to her education, for a meaningful interaction with her peers, since without her interpreter, she had no voice. An independent partial assessment that we had to request quickly corroborated the access issues. This led to hiring of Ellie as her interpreter, initially on a part-time basis, and ultimately on a full-time basis. And we are grateful for that, because when Mia has Ellie, she has access. Unfortunately, so the transformation of when Ellie came on board was immediate. The first thing the teacher said to us within a day of her being there was, wow, I never knew what Mia was struggling with. She didn't realize how attentive Mia could be and the stories and ideas that she could share with the class. Now, Mia loves school, and when she has her interpreter, she's no different than any other student in the district. She's met so many successful deaf individuals, business owners, teachers, physicians, and even some celebrities. Hi, Nigel. Mia is capable of anything. She dreams of becoming a scientist and a doctor. But none of that can happen though without an education, and her education is dependent on access to her interpreter. Right now she has that, and as I said, I'm truly grateful for that, but it's not enough. Every day we wake up wondering if this is the day that we're gonna lose it all. If this is the day that somebody is gonna turn around and decide that she's not worthy of an education. Mia's gonna be in this district for the next 10 years, right? It's a big commitment. We understand that. We know that you're dealing with a lot of issues. But if she doesn't have access to education, she is nothing. So the current model is really not able to support that long-term, stable. And so in the pre-reads, you've got the model. So I'm not going to actually go into the details of the model. Ellie and Nicole will speak a little bit more about what they've seen from a professional standpoint. But really the ask is that we stabilize access to interpreters for the deaf students that exist within this district and stand up to the legal obligation that this district has to ensure that she has access to education for the next 10 years.
Thank you very much. Next on our speakers list. Ellie will speak to meaningful education access for deaf students, legal compliance, and sustainable service model. And if you're ready, Ellie, and again, I will let you know when there's one that you can do that.
I'm gonna try to be as loud as Brian. Good evening, board. My name is Ellie Esmalse, and I'm a registered sign language interpreter, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my colleague Nicole. Over the past month, Nicole and I have met with senior administration to advocate for a sustainable system of access for deaf students in SD 61. We are here because the district's current model is not sustainable. And more importantly, it is not providing deaf students with reliable access to their education. Brian has spoke about the impact these issues have had on his child and family. I would like to speak about what those same issues look like from the perspective of the professionals responsible for providing language access. Throughout my work in SD 61, I have often had to advocate for my own presence in meetings about deaf students. Educational interpreters are frequently viewed as a service that provides communication access. In reality, we are members of the educational team with unique knowledge that no one else has. We spend every day with a student. We see what language they understand, what concepts they miss, where communication breaks down, and what strategies help them comprehend and engage with learning. We are often the first people to notice when a student is not truly comprehending what is being taught We see the gaps that develop when language access is inconsistent, and we see when communication barriers are mistaken for behavioral or academic challenges. In many cases, we are the only professionals who can observe those things throughout the school day. That perspective is essential to understanding whether a deaf student is receiving a meaningful access to their education. Because of that, I have often found myself choosing between remaining with my student to ensure she has access to instruction during these meetings, or leave her without access so I can participate in meetings about her education. I have always chosen to advocate for being at those meetings because I believe it is important. But the fact that this requires advocacy at all points to a fundamental misunderstanding of the interpreter's role. The question should not be whether an interpreter is allowed to attend. The question should be why the professional with the most direct knowledge of a deaf student's day-to-day language access is not automatically recognized as an essential part of educational planning. What concerns me is that this same misunderstanding shows up in the way interpreters are employed and how language access is delivered. Right now, interpreters in SB 61 work on year-to-year contracts and are classified as support staff, despite being the sole providers of language access for ASL user students. Effective language access does not happen by accident. It requires preparation, collaboration, and sometimes interpreter teaming. Like any specialized professional, interpreters need the time and resources to do that work well. There's also very little margin for error in the current system. To be honest, there are times when I feel I cannot afford to be sick. Not because I don't need time off, but because I know there may be no qualified interpreter available to replace me. No student's access to education should depend on whether one person is able to come to work that day. At the time of this meeting, there are still no confirmed interpreters in place for the 2026-2027 school year. That uncertainty is a direct result of a year-to-year contracting model that makes it difficult to recruit, retain, and plan for qualified professionals. Professional work deserves professional compensation. Recruitment and retention cannot be separated from working conditions, job security, and professional compensation for professional work. Access to education cannot depend on annual uncertainty. The legal risks and meaningful access service gaps associated with the current model are well documented and have been brought to the attention of district administration. Nicole and I have proposed a sustainable employment model that would provide the stability, continuity, and professional resources necessary to make meaningful access possible. Tonight, we are respectfully asking the board to support a stronger and more sustainable system for providing language access to deaf students in SB 61. Our goal is simple. Every deaf student should walk into school knowing they will have consistent access to language, learning, and the people around them. That access should not depend on staffing shortages, annual contracts, or whether someone is able to come to work that day. It should simply be there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is speaking about advocacy for sustainable and meaningful access for deaf students in SB 61. You just ask you to introduce yourself and your ready for it. So do we have a mic? Nigel's going to be presenting in ESL. So, and Deborah is going to be voicing for Nigel. So the mic project down the phone would be here. Yeah, here's look at that. Would be here, and then let's test it.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yes. Yeah, that's, yeah, okay. Oh,
Test, test, 1, 2, 3. Test, test, 1, 2, 3. All right. I would respectfully request that we add some additional minutes because working from American Sign Language into spoken language and given the technology this evening, I would ask that my 5 minutes go to 7 or 8. May I ask that first before I start?
Yeah, absolutely. I can use my expression of more share to allow that.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, we've certainly seen our technology not work well this evening, and I think when this email came to Tim and I, we were told, oh, don't worry, access will be provided by the captioning. Well, I just want to say that for many deaf people, English is not the first language. It could be the third or the fourth language, depending on where the child is from. And how is it that you would have access to my presentation by watching the captions? So I think it is a real example of when a school board doesn't understand the needs of a deaf person. And so when we apply that to a child, and we're talking about professionals, we need professionals who are experienced in deaf education, bilingual education, deaf culture, and so on. But unfortunately, what we often have is people who have no lived experience making decisions about us. And you may be familiar with the UNCRPD phrase, which is nothing about us without us. And so I know that all of you probably have an educational background, and often that is based on measuring deafness through a sense of loss of sound. What we want to do is be able to think about the child from birth throughout their lifetime and think about what does quality and equitable education looks like. Whether the child is deaf or hearing, all children become enculturated in a school system. And so when children who are deaf have incomplete or irregular language access, what that means is that they fall farther and farther behind. But every child has a right to an education, and deaf children require an equitable education. And it cannot be, oh, we've got a staff shortage or it's too expensive. And so if you meet with deaf professionals, you will understand this. I can offer an example. There are parents who may not be like Tim or Brian, who are able to advocate for their child's needs. There are other parents who will rely on school systems and professionals who really do not understand what a deaf life can be and assume that it is a medical problem. And if you look at the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and Canada is a signatory to that, if you look at the UNCPRD, and you look at many of those articles, they confirm that signed languages are languages. They're not communication tools, they are languages. They are not tools, but they are natural evolving languages. And as Ellie mentioned this morning or this afternoon in her presentation, we're talking about people need to be qualified interpreters. I used to teach in the interpreting program some 25 years. And so we're not talking about somebody who's taken one class of sign language being qualified in a classroom. Deaf children require full access. They require the skills of a professionally trained interpreter. And sometimes what I hear is that school districts take the bottom line, but you cannot measure a child's educational quality based on the bottom line. When you think about Mia, when you think about maybe the 30 children in your school district who would use interpreters, we are spending millions and millions of dollars for all kinds of students within the Victoria School District. There are schools everywhere. But we are not able to think about accommodating one child. We're not able to think about, well, just try a hearing aid. Maybe that'll solve our problem. Mia is a human. And if you look at the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, and you look at the Accessible Act here in British Columbia, where all of those laws speak to the legal obligation to provide a signed language accessible education. Access to the teachers, access to peers, access to the social environment. It is that is the learning environment. And interpreters provide that language access in all of that school day. Article 21, Article 24 of the CRPD, very important because it speaks to education and bilingual education and the child's right to learn through a signed language. And so Mia has every right to become a doctor, every right to become a scientist. We have other deaf doctors. One of them lives in Vancouver. There are many deaf doctors and deaf scientists. If you just think about in Texas, for example, there is a leading specialist who is deaf and leads the entire operating room team. So if we think about Victoria, where you have a shortage of doctors, you're looking at a future doctor in Mia. So language and culture are something that is very much tied to identity. And so when you think about education, education must be delivered in the most appropriate language and not talking about a modified curriculum, not talking about communication tools, not talking about hiring someone who has 30 hours of sign language. I mean, to be asking parents to come in and provide communication support for their child, would you do that for any other child? I don't think so. Every child has a right to have parents, of course, who love them, who are there to parent them, for those parents to have every pride in their child's growth in the classroom and in the education system. And of course, there can always be moments of disruption, but that is life. But the nerve of a school system to ask the parents to come in and provide communication support so that their child can access the same education that every other child is doing. What is the outcome? So when we think about the outcomes, we want deaf and hard of hearing children to be able to graduate with the same abilities and to be able to pursue the same post-secondary opportunities. And so I'm sorry to be so direct, but you are failing every deaf and hard of hearing child with an unsustainable model. You are not supporting their growth with inequitable or inconsistent or absent language access. The facts are there. So I get passionate about this because I've seen too many children go through the education system in British Columbia, across the country, and in my international work. Education provides every child with the opportunity to become who they are in the world. And so you can read this UNCRPD and all of the articles, but I just also want to talk about, if we think about the School Act, 1996, 412, when we talk about accessible education, we talk about equitable education. That speaks to full participation. And of course, in a deaf environment, that's full participation. And with an interpreter, that allows full participation to the peers, to the teachers. And I could go on and on about interpreter qualifications. You want interpreters who are members of their professional association, such as the West Coast Association of Visual Language Interpreters. You want people who are professionally trained. When you hire inappropriately trained people to work with deaf students, they fall farther and farther behind. They get mislabeled as well. When you're talking about behavior, unbelievable to me, really. The child is trying to express themselves, and every child will try to find a way to express themselves if they do not have access to learning. And so to label the child as a behavioral issue, and often that labeling follows that child. And you do get an angry child who is angry about not having access. So when we create these barriers, we then start to modify the curriculum. And again, there are many things that we cannot say in a 7-minute presentation, but we have to rely on those professionals in order to provide language access. And the School Act indeed recognizes the requirement of sign language interpreters. It specifically says sign language interpreters. It doesn't say sign language aids. It doesn't say educational aids. It says sign language interpreters. I thank you for your patience while okay. And so my final points are this. You have the CRPD, you have the Accessible BC Act, you have the BC School Act, and you have the BC Inclusive Education Policies, which I don't tout as stellar, but all of these at the international level also apply to the local level. And when we're talking about quality education for deaf and hard of hearing children, all of these acts apply. When it comes to interpreters, again, I could say much more, but as Ellie said, it is language access. The child is taking that in visually, and there are so many stories of when parents meet me on the street and they have a deaf child and I sign to that child, those eyes are attentive. They are sponges wanting to learn in a language that is accessible to them. And so they need full access. And that is
We've reached the over the 9-minute limit.
all right. I thank you for your time. So my point is this: stop arguing and listen and do the right thing. And so allow Maya to have a great education. Thank you. Switch interpreters. We're also going to switch interpreters for Tim, and so the other interpreter will need access to being able to use her camera and her microphone. Can we see the other interpreter, please? It would appear the other interpreter is only allowed to be in the interpreter channel and not the room.
Let us just address that.
We see the board reps and Joshua, but we do not see the other interpreter because she's in the interpreter channel and not the room.
Just bear with us a moment. We're going to see if we can sort that out.
We can see it on YouTube. Just there.
Perfect.
There we go.
Just testing my audio. Are you able to hear me?
So we're going to, at the 8-minute mark, I will let you know that you're one and let out.
But okay, so are you able to hear the interpreter?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Tim is just saying, can I proceed? Hi there. My name is Tim. Like you've heard, I mean, as you are seeing now, there are things that we have to go through in the system, and I have gone through this with my 3 daughters, who are 8, 6, and 4 years old. I'm a deaf father myself, and their mother is also deaf, so we're a fully deaf family. This is more about my personal experience, not as an educator, but it's more stuff that I've experienced as a father. I live in Parksville, so in a small town. We're in SD 69. That's where my daughters are going to school here. And so when I first went into kindergarten, her mom and I mean, we knew we've been through the deaf education system. So we have, of course, gone through several of those struggles over the years, and I've continued to advocate for myself. And those before me have done so as well. I went to a deaf school at Jericho Hill School and then transferred to BCSD actually. And now that I've been living here for the past 2.5 years, I've seen several of the issues, the systemic issues. And so I was ready to expose my daughters to as much language access as possible. A lot of people don't know what to do with a deaf child when they're born. They kind of just throw them into the system and hope that they can be taken care of. But because I'm deaf, I know how to advocate for my children. So when I first went into kindergarten, my wife and I were advocating at the school, you know, we have a deaf child, we need an interpreter, and we explained everything well in advance. And they said, oh, it's okay, we have a signing educational assistant. And I thought to myself, okay, that's great because potentially they're fluent in sign language, and they also needed a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, a TDHH. And so I asked whether they had one, and they said yes, yes. So usually that type of professional will understand the deaf experience. And so we were very excited for her to start kindergarten, and we actually encountered a lot of barriers along the way. The person who was working in the classroom was an EA who could sign, very different than a sign language interpreter. So we kind of had to throw all of our ideas about this idyllic education for our daughter out the window. And my wife and I had to do a lot of work and we shouldn't have to advocate for our child to have basic access to education. So we've spent a lot of time and energy trying to explain why it's important for our children to have that access, you know, to be able to actually eventually go through their educations and go to a university and get a degree. You can't just say that this type of education is good enough for deaf people. And with someone who is not a fully fluent sign language interpreter and is kind of using gesture to communicate, I mean, you would say the same thing if someone was only able to speak in really broken English. They're not fluent. That's not an access to education. And so, yeah, we went through that. We explained a lot to the educators in the school system. When we saw the job posting, there were also a lot of errors in what they were looking for. I had to get in contact with POPDHH. And so we were in touch with them a lot to make sure that the posting was appropriate and they were able to actually post it eventually. They did interview a few folks. And then finally, they hired an actual interpreter. So my daughter didn't have an interpreter for several months before they were able to actually find someone. But that was a temporary contract. So we were excited to have the interpreter for a while, but they couldn't continue. So then they had to switch to another interpreter. They had to look for another interpreter. That was another barrier that came up. And for my daughter, trying to access education, it was really awful. And after a while, they became clear about the interpreter role and all of that eventually. And they hired a second interpreter. And a few years later, my second daughter went into the school as well. There's an interesting situation that came up. I was trying to explain things, and I thought it was clear. And later on, they said, oh, no, we can't actually get an interpreter. And they said that it was a union issue. And then they weren't transparent about what was actually going on. There was like an internal barrier within the system itself as well. So apparently I should have spoken to the union first. And that was a barrier in and of itself. And I explained that's a barrier to my child's education. And they said, yes, we understand. And so then I had to explain the entire issue to the union as well. And they kept pointing, putting the responsibility on the other entity when it was just like, they just kept sending me back and forth. And then the teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, we also had issues with that as well. They're supposed to give appropriate curriculum for the child's needs. So for example, if there's a music course of some kind, then they would just change it to a different type of curriculum for a deaf child. But because the person didn't really know much about deaf culture or sign language, I mean, I don't know how you can be a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing if you don't know any of that information. So you should probably just be taking the D off of TDHH. Yeah, so after a while, there was no TDHH. And there was someone actually over in the States. That they were able to hire as the TDHH working remotely from America. So they signed a contract, and I was shocked to learn that they were trying to do that remotely. I said, no, like my daughter's only 6 years old. She doesn't understand how to like interact with technology and be on a screen with a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing. Anyways, and then finally, just recently, they were able to hire one who can sign. And I thought to myself, okay, hopefully they're qualified. They seem to be qualified, so fingers crossed with that. And now my third daughter will be going into kindergarten this fall. Seems like they were able to find an interpreter for my third daughter and a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing as well. But it's been 3 years of this huge struggle since my first daughter went into kindergarten, and there were struggles with my first two, and finally now with the third, they're kind of getting the hang of it. And it's a bit more of a smooth process. So, but I really do think there have been a lot of similar struggles between all of my daughters. And I think a lot of people don't realize how many invisible barriers deaf people face. And again, I could go on, but I'd like to just also echo what everyone else has said thus far about interpreters needing the appropriate treatment as like professionals and everything like that. And as someone who lives in Parksville in a small town, we were successfully able to increase the salary. And so that was enough for some interpreters to be able to come. a lot of people are not willing to move to a small town if it's a lower income job. So yeah, this is the first time we've had a team of 3 interpreters who are working at the school for all 3 of my daughters. But I really just want the school board to have more of a top-down approach as opposed to a bottom-up approach to children. So make sure you're focusing on the child themselves. As a father, I've experienced all of this, and I was very excited for my child to end up going to school. But it just kind of took up a lot of sorry, what was that?
We're at the moment. Thank you very much. Did you want to?
Okay, sorry. Yeah, just please focus on the deaf children's needs and accessibility. Yeah, I've been through the system myself, and now I've seen it through my children. So yeah.
Thank you very, very much. And for your patience as we grapple with our technical challenges. We'll certainly use this evening as an opportunity to learn and grow and to look at how we can make this space safe for meetings in future. So thank you very, very much. We don't normally have any kind of discussion at this point in our agenda. But what I can tell you is that we do have some education policy and directions standing committees that are going to be resuming in the fall. And certainly we can reach out to discuss those agendas and how you may participate in that work at the standing committees. So thank you again for your patience and for coming and speaking to us tonight. We're going to move on to correspondence. So trustees, under B1, we have a letter dated June 9th, 2026, from the human rights groups who are urging for moratorium on Facebook schools. Thank you for stopping me. No, that's good. We actually made an adjustment to our agenda, and the Secretary Treasurer and Vice Chair kindly reminded me. So what we decided to do, folks, is to move an agenda item that is a bylaw reading. It is a bylaw reading to basically move it back to where we were pre-January 30th, 2025. And so I'm going to turn the floor over to the Secretary Treasurer to walk us through that bylaw.
Thank you, Chair. You will find Superintendent Whitney's role in the packet on page 89 to point 48. There are 2 recommended motions in the memo. Just to review, there was to restore the suspended and revised bylaws that were revised and suspended in the official trustee list office. The elected member has been reinstated. These need to be revised, as you say, that to January 30th on date. So the 2 motions that are in the memo that are recorded.
Thank you, and thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate that. Okay, trustees, so again, we're at E under the superintendent's report. We have 2 recommended motions. The motion must be carried unanimously. And for the passing, and again, the intention here is to revert all of our bylaws and so on back to the state of play as of 30th of January 2025. So I'll look to my colleagues.
So Yeah, the mic, I'm not sure how far the mic is from the speakers, but it's very difficult for me to hear you. And the other, my co-interpreter actually can't hear any of the sound in the room, so she can't support me. Just because of how everything is set up.
We do have a cell phone here on mute. Can you hear me if I unmute the cell? It's on this.
Yes, I can hear if you unmute.
Deb, you might have to mute yourself on Zoom and then keep the phone on so that we don't have the echo as well.
We do a 5-3 sound, so it's projecting, I just never know the sound setting, so I have to get cover sheet sound setting. With the live sheet on.
If I unmute, unfortunately, we've got some technical issues that our staff is not able to identify a solution to. So we can do our best to use the cell phone, but unfortunately, we've got quite an echo in the room. The echo is
We're just confirming that I can be heard on the live stream. And if I can, then I think we found a solution to allow us to move forward. So just bear with us a moment.
So I can, if I hear I'm in the studio, that I've heard this one.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll proceed. Okay, so we, again, folks are at E, board bylaws. We have a bylaw reading which we do this evening in order to get us back to a state of play of January 30th, 2025. The recommended motion is in the packet. It reads that the Board of Education of School District number 61 of Greater Victoria agree to give all 3 readings to the board bylaws restored to the versions in effect prior to the January 30th, 2025 change in the composition of the Board of Education at the regular board meeting on June 15th, 2026. To my colleagues, are we happy with the wording? Change in the composition of the Board of Education? We want to clarify anything of that? Perhaps with language such as when an official trustee was installed in place of the elected board. To make it more clear what it is we're referring to. Would somebody like to move that amendment to the motion? Okay, so that was moved by trustee Bio, and do I have a seconder? Seconded by trustee Carmichael. So I'm turning to Secretary Treasurer to make sure you're good before I proceed. Okay. All right, before I open the floor to discussion by the board, I just want to acknowledge that we have many of our partners in the room this evening, and certainly if there's any comments or any questions that you have before I call the question for the board, I just want to open the floor to all of you. You're certainly welcome to make any comments, ask any questions, make any suggestions. Okay. Trustees, any discussion? All right, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended? And that is unanimous. Okay, so Secretary Treasurer, will you just walk me through with the bylaw readings, the next stage? So we've amended the first motion, the motion carried unanimously. With the bylaw reading, can we move right into the first reading of the next motion? Okay, wonderful. Okay, and should I do a mover and a seconder after I've read it in? Or before? Okay, or to put it on the floor. Wonderful, okay. So in order to do the first reading of the next portion, I'm gonna call for a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Bio and seconded by trustee David. Thank you. All right, and I'll read it into the record. So the recommended motion is as follows, that the following restored board bylaws. Let me just read those for you. Bylaw 9130.0, standing committees. Bylaw 9130.1, the Education Policy and Directions Committee. Bylaw 9130.2, the Operations Policy and Planning Committee. Bylaw 9250.2, notices of motion. Bylaw 9360.2, meetings of the Standing Committee. Bylaw 9010.0, bylaws of the board. Bylaw 9011.0, full votes. Bylaw 9110.0, organization. Bylaw 9130.3, policy subcommittee. Bylaw 9130.4, audit subcommittee. Bylaw 9140.0, ad hoc committee of the board. Bylaw 9210.0, the development of policy. Bylaw 9220.0, administrative regulations. Bylaw 9221.0, board administration relationships. Bylaw 9222.0, trustee access to information. Bylaw 9330.1, appeal process and attachment. Bylaw 9360.0, general meeting of the board. Bylaw 9360.01, question period during general meetings of the Board of Education. Bylaw 9360.1, in-camera meetings, general sessions. And bylaw 9368.0, procedure. Be read the first time, the 15th day of June, 2026. Any discussion? Trustee Plum.
Yeah, more of a question, actually. Just wanted clarification on the revision, as to whether the revision was just to suspend them or if there was any other revisions to those bylaws that one.
Secretary Treasurer, are you able to answer that question?
I included that in the memo, the original motion. That was carried. So you can see that there are 5 bylaws that were suspended. Standing committees, Education Policy and Directions Committee, Operations Policy and Planning Committee, notices of motion, and meetings of the standing committees. Those were just suspended because they didn't apply to a single trustee. And then revisions were changes to language where it said one chair or there were multiple trustees. So the following 15 bylaws were revisions. They're still on the same plan in the new motion.
But to clarify, the bylaw readings that we're conducting right now will result in everything being returned as it was prior to January 30th, 2025. Yeah. Okay, any other discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay. So we start again. Bear with us, folks. Recommended motion is that the Board of Associate Superintendent, did you have a point of clarification? You're taking the emergency. Yes, thank you very much. Need a mover and a seconder for our second reading. Moved by trustee Bio and seconded by trustee Carmichael. Okay. Here we go. That the following restored board bylaws. Bylaw 9130.0, standing committees. Bylaw 9130.1, the Education Policy and Directions Committee. Bylaw 9130.2, the Operations Policy and Planning Committee. Bylaw 9250.2, notices of motion. Bylaw 9360.2, meetings of the Standing Committee. Bylaw 9010.0, bylaws of the board. Bylaw 9011.0, Full votes, bylaw 9110.0 organization, bylaw 9130.3 policy subcommittee, bylaw 9130.4 audit subcommittee, bylaw 9140.0 ad hoc committee of the board, bylaw 9210.0 the development of policy, bylaw 9220.0 administrative regulations, bylaw 9221.0 board administration relationships, bylaw 9222.0 trustee access to information, bylaw 9330.1 appeal process and attachment, bylaw 9360.0 general meeting of the board, bylaw 9360.01 question period during general meetings of the Board of Education, bylaw 9360.1 in-camera meetings, general sessions, bylaw 9368.0 procedure be read a second time the 15th day of June 2026. Any discussions? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so we'll do our third and final reading. Going to ask for a mover and a seconder. I promise we'll get to the point where you don't have to remind me. I already is rusty. Trustee Gagnon has moved it and is seconded by trustee Carmichael. All right, here we go. One more time. That the following restored board bylaws, bylaw 9130.0 standing committees, bylaw 9130.1 the education policy directions committee, bylaw 9130.2 the operations policy and planning committee, bylaw 9250.2 notices of motion, bylaw 9360.2 meetings of the standing committee, bylaw 9010.0 bylaws of the board, bylaw 9011.0 poll votes, bylaw 9110.0 organization, bylaw 9130.3 policy subcommittee, bylaw 9130.4 audit subcommittee, bylaw 9140.0 ad hoc committee of the board, bylaw 9210.0 the development of policy, bylaw 9220.0 administrative regulations, bylaw 9221.0 board administration relationships, bylaw 9222.0 trustee access to information, bylaw 9330.1 appeal process and attachment, bylaw 9360.0 general meeting of the board, bylaw 9360.01 question period during general meetings of the Board of Education, bylaw 9360.1 in-camera meetings, general sessions, and bylaw 9368.0 procedure be read a third time, passed and adopted the 15th day of June 2026. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing that, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. All right, thank you folks. Thanks for your patience while we took care of that housekeeping item. And thank you again to the staff for reminding me to do it before we moved on to correspondence. Okay, so we have one piece of correspondence under B, B1. And again, this is a letter dated and attachments dated June 9th, 2026. This letter is from human rights groups which urge a moratorium on police in schools in BC. And this is from BC Civil Liberties Association. That's there for information. Trustees, is there any aspect of this letter that you would like to discuss or pull for discussion? And likewise, our partners, this is another area for you to participate in. Yeah, go ahead.
Before the board considers this, please note sections 3.3 and 12.0 of the LEA. And also Swamis Nation has tripartite agreement with Public Safety of Canada and the RCMP, which is federally and provincially funded.
Thank you.
We're going to put that on record.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Anything else in respect to this letter? Okay. All right, so the next item on our agenda is trustee reports. There's one report tonight under C1. This is my chair's report. I want to formally welcome back the democratically elected board. I am so pleased to see my colleagues here tonight, and I'm so happy that Greater Victoria School District is no longer the only school district in the province without its democratically elected board. Our communities certainly deserve to have their choice during the 2022 election respected, and we look forward to fulfilling our democratic mandate for what remains of our term. It's also lovely to see all of our partners here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your participation and for helping to share your knowledge and help guide our work. We appreciate it. Good evening to all of the public who's also attended this evening. It's lovely to see folks in person. Hello. So since the board was reinstated on the 25th of May, we've been very much focused on getting up to speed. In order to get up to speed, I've made several requests on behalf of the board for various reports. We shall see some of which are in the packet tonight around budgets, policy work, land and buildings, and so on. We'll definitely be working hard over the summer period to review policies and other matters to not only get up to speed, but also to be in a good position to sit down, for instance, in August during a partners table meeting, which we are working to schedule, as well as potentially some special board meetings, which we may schedule depending on the nature of the work that we want to accomplish before the end of the term. The other matter, which will be covered in my chair's report, are two motions which have been voted out of the in-camera into the public. Those two motions I will read for the record. They are in-camera motions that were voted out into the public to be read this evening. These in-camera motions relate to in-camera meetings in February, specifically February 25th, 2025. The first motion reads that the official trustee of school district number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to suspend the requirement of ongoing district tracking of all student interactions with police while in the care of the Board of Education until the district's safety and implementation plans are approved by the Minister of Education and Childcare, at which time this requirement may be reviewed. The second motion that I'll be disclosing in the public meeting again relates to the in-camera meeting on the 25th of February 2025, and it reads as follows. That the official trustee of school district number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to suspend the requirement of having to provide the minutes of the regional Lower Island Safe Schools meetings until the district's safety and implementation plans are approved by the Minister of Education and Childcare, at which time this requirement may be reviewed. So trustees, in light of those two previously in-camera motions that we've now just read into the record, my recommendation to the board is that we consider rescinding those. That would basically again put us back to the state of play as of the 30th of January 2025. And trustee Pincher, would you like to move on motion to that effect?
Certainly, and a question, by rescinding it, are we able to move the recording back to that point in time?
So you're asking whether or not it's possible to have a retroactive reporting?
Yes.
That's a good question. I will turn to staff to advise whether or not it's possible to have that reporting be retroactive back to January 30th, 2025.
I'll have to check it for you as possible. See.
So we're not clear whether records are kept that we could draw on to make sure.
The second motion on item sit on the safety evaluation. Sure about that, so I asked that, I'm in front of it, and I'm happy to do that with that here. Can't confirm that.
Okay, so in light of the fact that it can't be confirmed whether the information is documented and therefore could be produced into a retroactive report, I guess I'm calling on the board to decide whether we want to rescind it and see what can be provided, following the associate superintendent making appropriate inquiries. Not yet. I will, if you want to move a motion to that effect, I'll look for a seconder.
Motion to rescind.
Okay, and do I have a seconder, trustee Danielle? Okay, any discussion? Yeah. Before the trustees discuss, I just want to again open the floor to partners. If there is anything that you want to contribute to the discussion about rescinding these two motions, please feel free.
I'm very sorry, can you clarify the significance of this, if it's news to me and I don't quite kind of. Right.
Of course, yeah, let me give some context. So prior to January 30th, 2025, the board required through a motion that it passed in 2023, monthly reporting to it about all student interactions with police while the students were in the care of the Board of Education. In February 25th, 2025, the official trustee suspended that reporting. And so what we're looking at is to rescind that. And basically looking to have some retroactive reporting, but if that is not possible because the documents don't exist, then to have whatever reporting can be provided. So basically, again, it just brings us back to where we were as of January 30th, 2025, and respect to the reporting the board would expect. In terms of the second motion that was read into the record from, again, February 25th, 2025 in camera, that relates to the board's requiring both agendas, minutes of regional, it's called the Regional South Island Safety Committee. It's a regional meeting where multiple school boards and partners meet to discuss safety. And the board prior to January 30th, 2025 had required access to the minutes and to the agendas of those meetings. And the motion that was read into the record rescinded that reporting requirement. And so again, okay, thank you. Sorry, that was a long way to get there, but hopefully that clarifies everything. Yeah, go ahead.
So then my question would be, if it goes back to that, every time a student has an interaction with the police officer, it has to be reported. So if a student goes to a police officer for safety reasons, that has to be reported.
That's right. So every time there's an interaction with a student while they're in the care of the Board of Education and the police, basic documentation would be produced. That documentation came to the board in the form of a monthly report. And so that report, just for context, that report doesn't name specific students. So it's anonymized. It's a school-based aggregate information about the type of interactions, whether there have been interactions and the reasons for those interactions. Yeah. Any other questions just in terms of that particular reporting? Or questions about what it means to rescind the in-camera motions? Oh, trustee Bauer.
If the motion was to rescind, do we need to add an amendment to say that if possible, we would like retroactive reporting, or?
I can't hear what you're saying.
Sorry. It's my teacher voice. Just, I was asking the chair, if the motion is to rescind, do we need to add an amendment requesting that additional reporting if possible? Or can we just do the motion to rescind and then just, we already know that we've asked staff if that's possible to find it.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So trustee Bio was just wondering whether we need to move a motion to amend the motion to rescind to clarify that if there is additional documentation that is being kept and that can be used to provide retroactive reporting, that will happen. I guess I'd really look to the associate superintendent and just to clarify whether or not that's something that you think needs to be put in the motion, or if that's something you would do anyway.
Yeah, I think the questions are clear, what you're asking for. There's a chance of taking a few questions away tonight, so we'll bring you now back. Resolution.
Okay, so staff having to provide retroactive reporting, that is possible. Yeah,
Just a question, and it's really to do with the partners, because I'm sensing there is some uncomfortableness with this, for lack of a better word, and so, you know, my thought is really just for my colleagues as well as partners, if you're willing to speak up, perhaps, you know, if there is some unresolved things that maybe this is a good conversation to have at a partner table, and maybe we can think about what we're doing until we can have that conversation. Just wanted to kind of get both my colleagues and partners' views on that.
Yeah, Go ahead to speak right now.
Yeah, please do.
I
Yeah.
actually think that it would be very helpful data for us to have. The patch error, for us to understand what kind of actions would be put in place, so I'm thankful for the work that. Being done.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So we're not gonna move an amendment. So we've got a motion on the floor. It's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion before I call the question and move this on? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands? Sorry, trustees, it's just hard for me to see. There we go. All right, all those opposed? Abstentions? So we have, the balance of the board in favor and trustee Kwan abstaining. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. The only other item under C1 this evening is B, and that is just, again, for the record, the statement that the board provided after its reinstatement. Okay, so that leads us up to D. This is the board committee reports. The first one is D1, and this is the audit subcommittee report. Secretary Treasurer. Sure. The audit subcommittee had a meeting on May 6th. There were two items that have come forward with recommendations to the board. The first one being the approval of the 2025-2026 audit planning report. And the second one being approval or acceptance of the March 2026 quarterly financial report. Just mindful that the quarterly report is almost 3 months ago, and we're almost to the end of June. I just wanted to offer for the trustees who ordinarily sit on this committee, if there are any questions, welcome to reach out to me. There's a lot of information in those reports. I think it's also in a different form than what we've used. There are two motions there for consideration. Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, so we have two recommended motions. Before we read the motions and look to move those, I just want to open the floor for any questions that trustees may have for the Secretary Treasurer at this point. Not seeing any questions from trustees, and again, I'm just going to open up the floor to our partners. If there's any questions in relation to this particular item, please feel free. Okay. Not seeing any questions, I'm going to move us forward. So under D1A is the 2025-2026 audit planning report. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education School District number 61 Greater Victoria approve the 2025-2026 audit planning report as presented to the audit subcommittee. May I have a mover? Moved by trustee Byron and seconded by trustee Carmichael. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with the show of hands? And that is unanimous. Thank you, folks. The next item under audit subcommittee is B, the March 2026 quarterly financial report. Secretary Treasurer, is there anything from this that you wanted to highlight for the board and for the partners? I'm just highlighting that it is an expanded report from what we had provided previously, which I mentioned. Previously, we had just shown the operating fund and transition purpose capital. And the other changes. Nothing specifically with that.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer, and I appreciate the enhanced reporting. Thank you. Any questions, trustees, or again, to the partners around the table, any questions? Okay, so the recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria accept the March 2026 quarterly financial report as presented to the audit subcommittee. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by trustee Kwan, seconded by trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, so that brings us to our district leadership team reports. First report is superintendent's report. Associate Superintendent Arts, I understand that you'll be presenting the reports tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. So you'll find in the backup, Superintendent Whitman, this monthly report on page 71 to 74, for your information. As well as the district learning summary on page 75 to 79. So lots of good information in there, as well as some kudos and recognition, gratitude, that wanted to be shared.
Thank you very much, Associate Superintendent. So I know we do have a couple of recommended motions under Superintendent's report. One of
We're going to come up with the next academy fees and the
the school calendar, yeah,
no recommended motions for them.
okay, wonderful. Trustees and again, partners, just opening the table up for any comments or questions that you might have in respect to the monthly report. Yeah, Trustee Painter, go ahead.
We just wait one moment while I get there. So trustee Painter, great.
Hey, I know in the monthly report that pathways and partnerships is mentioned a few times. I was just wondering what the budget for pathways and partnerships is this year relative to like next year relative to the current year.
Associate Superintendent.
Yeah.
Would you?
Sure, or Julie for the extra budget amount. The numbers for pathways. Yeah. I don't- Yeah. If we have to bring them back to you. That number is just on.
Can we just, I think so that people doesn't have to be on the phone the entire night. Perhaps we can just move the phone, so the phone is how we have a person that can participate if we move that around, so. We can maybe just,
So slower responses down.
yeah, no, I think we all can slow down, and then also if we can just pass it down. And I will get up and come over and get it this time. So again. Oh my gosh. We'll get used to this. In fact, this is a prompt for us to get some microphones at the board table. So we're gonna slow down and we're going to move the phone from speaker to speaker so that I can fully participate.
Just to respond to trustee Painter's question, trustee Painter will have to get back to the actual dollar amount for the budget for next year. I don't know that number off the top. I think that information.
Are there any other questions in relation to the monthly report? Okay, seeing none, we're gonna move on to B, and this is the 2025-2026 district learning summary. And again, Associate Superintendent.
Yeah, as mentioned, that is in the packet page 75 to 79 for your information. And Superintendent Whitman, put that report together. Okay. Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, the district learning summaries in the backup page 75 to 79. Superintendent Whitman put that packet information together for your information.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent. Trustees and partners, do you have any questions in respect to this item? Any questions? No, okay. I'm gonna move us on to C, and this is the 2026-2027 special academy fees. There is a recommended motion. I'm just gonna read it and then I'll turn the floor back over to the Associate Superintendent in a moment. And the recommended motion is that the Board of Education School District number 61, Greater Victoria, make available to the public via the district website the schedules of fees that have been approved by the Parent Advisory Council for the school where the Board of Education proposes to offer a special academy. Our Associate Superintendent, I'll let you walk us through that.
Thank you, Chair. You will find this information in the packet on page 85. Noel highlights the requirement that any time a school or a board is going to charge fees for a specialty academy, which they're allowed to do under the school law, they need to consult with the parent advisory council for those schools. In this case, we have 4 schools, again, with academies in them, Esquimalt High School, Lambert Park, Reynolds, and Spectrum. And so all of those have assigned consultation that happened, what could happen to backup regarding their fees for the next year. You will see that in 3 cases, the fees remain the exact same. In 1 case, in Lambert's Lambert Parks Diamond for Excellence Baseball and Softball Academy, there was an increase of $216 compared to last year. This is the first increase at Lambert Park for their academy in over a decade. And I believe it's 13 years, but we actually weren't able to find the specific last time that there was an increase in this fee. And the rest of them are the same as before. So the recommended motion was adopted.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent. Trustees, partners, are there any questions in relation to the recommended motion or in respect to the one instance of an increase in fees? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I noted and the board policy that no child will be.
1 second, sorry.
No.
Taking a
Sorry,
minute.
should have come to you.
No.
Yeah, so it's good that for us to see that all of them say consistent with district policy, no student will be excluded due to financial hardship. I'm wondering if we have any understanding of how many students are included through bursaries. So because, yeah, in that way.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to turn the floor over to the associate.
Thank you, the chair. It's a very great question. I can't give you a specific number of students, but I mean, when I look at the secondary principals around academies, this is something that every academy has supported and continues to support. For that, because you don't want to have any child not able to partake, as the hardship policy says, but I don't have a specific number to share.
Just to confirm, Associate Superintendent, you're saying that as far as you're aware, there's no student who wants to participate that is turned away on the basis of cost?
Correct.
Thank you. And the Associate Superintendent confirmed that's correct. Any other questions in relation to this particular item? Trustees, do you have any questions in relation to the one instance of increase to the fees? Okay. So we have a recommended motion. Thank you, Associate Superintendent, for that clarification. And I'll be looking for a mover and seconder. Moved by Trustee Pond and seconder, Trustee Bio, sorry, seconder. Any discussion, trustees? Seeing that, all those in favor, show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're moving along to the next item under superintendent's report. And this item has to do with our school calendar for next school year. We've got, actually the first is up 2028 to 2029 school calendar. Under D. I'm going to turn this over to the Associate Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair. You will find this this memo and information on page 86 and 88 of the backup. Number of years ago, it was decided that we would look to have a 3-year calendar. So we would have the school calendar about 3 years ahead to allow for maximum planning and flexibility within our district. And so, and now we're talking about 28, 29. It seems a long way away, but as we drop our 25, 26 calendar, 28, 29 is the 3-year calendar ahead. The board has already approved the 26, 27 and the 27, 28. So this is another 3-year calendar that will allow that to continue. So through consultation with our partners, GP 9382-947, GPTA, PAC, VPA, as well as our neighboring districts 62 and 63. We have tried to have a calendar that has as much overlap and consistency as possible between the 3 districts. Because when we didn't have that, especially around major breaks like winter break and spring break, that was very difficult. So this proposed calendar we have is as close as it possibly could be short one Pro D Day, which two of our districts are on the same line. But it looks like Soup is going to be on a Monday, Saanich and Victoria on a Friday. So it's almost as tight as it can be. And so so that was the process. We put it out for public consultation, and we will see that there were two pieces of feedback that came back. One of them was to move a Pro D Day to be the day after Halloween. That would be easier for students. It was the recommendation, but we would then move away from our neighboring districts. And one of the recommended days is a provincial Pro D Day that we don't control the date on. And the other one, that this has come up before, this is a late time to get out before winter break. And there was a recommendation to back up a week till the 15th. But again, if we did that, both Soup and Saanich are on the 22nd of December. And so we would have an entire week where we were out of the line. And so, so that's why the recommendation was to stick with what is there. But those were the two pieces of feedback that came through the public. And there is a recommended motion that the Board of Education of the School District 61 Greater Victoria approve the 28-29 school calendar.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. Just opening the floor up to both our partners on the board, any questions or comments in respect to the 2028-2029 school calendar. Yeah, Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering the two pieces of feedback, if there's an opportunity, maybe not, you know, for this calendar, but in the future to take that feedback and really go back to the neighboring districts to see if that's something that they might consider as well, so that, you know, we're looking at, you know, still consistency and, you know, and being able to get childcare during those breaks, but also, you know, incorporating some of the feedback that we've heard, yeah. Associate Superintendent indicated that yes, that is a possibility. Sure.
I would say that we surveyed teachers, so we got lots of teachers respond to that survey, and the calendar as is set for that winter break starting late was the vast preference in the survey, so I wonder about, you know, the feedback, how that also came in, yeah.
Any other questions, comments, trustees? Okay, so I'm gonna look for a mover and a seconder. For the approval, Trustee Collins moving it and seconder. Trustee Carmichael, thank you. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor of the motion with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. All right, thank you, trustees, and thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. Okay, so we're moving along in our agenda packet. We've already dispensed of the next item earlier in our agenda. And so we find ourselves at F, the 2026-2027 Board of Education meeting schedule. Now, I'm just turning to the Associate Superintendent. Are you happy to present this report again in the absence of the Superintendent? Thank you very much. I will.
Thank you. And through the chair, you will find 26-27 Board of Education meeting, recommended meeting schedule on page 149 and 150 of your packet. And so you will see we will return to education policy and corrections committee meetings, as well as regular board meetings, and also some partners of SC61 meetings in there for the year from September through to June. In this fairly self-explanatory, the dates and time of it. There is a recommended position for this one. So.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent. Just want to clarify in terms of summer meeting schedule for the partners table. We did discuss the potential for an August meeting. Is that something that we need to discuss at this agenda item, or no, this really starts in September? And so the partners table meeting in the summertime is just something we would schedule separately. Is that right? Okay, perfect. Can you confirm that? Wonderful. All right, so I want to just pause because I know that this schedule impacts all of the partners and your ability to attend during the proposed times. And so I'm going to open the floor first to our partners. If you have any comments, suggestions, concerns in relation to the proposed 2026-2027 Board of Education meeting schedule.
Can you just tell us what page it's on? 149.
One, yeah, 149.
Sorry, I'm already not doing it.
Yeah, 149. Yeah, so starting at the top of the table, we've got the standing committees that have been established, and we'll start, we've got the general meeting of the board. The partners table of first meeting in the new school year is currently scheduled for October 5th. I don't want to rush you, just let me know if you have any questions or concerns. No, okay. I see you're shaking your head, so that's good. I'm gonna move us on then with your blessing. Okay, so we do have a recommended motion, trustees. And I'm gonna look to the mover and the seconder as soon as I can get us back in the packet. Okay, so trustees, who would like to move the motion to approve the schedule? Trustee Gagnon and the seconder. Trustee Kwan, any discussion? Yep, trustee Gagnon.
Just, I'm hoping you can echo it for the interpreter, but do we need to, okay, all right. Do we need to re-vote the chairs of the two, standing committees? Okay.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions, trustees, before I call the question? Great. We have a mover and a seconder, secretary treasurer, and that's recorded. Yeah, lovely. Okay, I'm gonna call the question, trustees. All those in favor with show of hands? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so we added an item. Trustee questions. Not quite there yet, but we will add that. I know Secretary Treasurer, will you just remind me? So that I don't move on to your report about offering trustee questions to my colleagues. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're at G. This is the 2025 climate change accountability report. Again, will it be Associate Superintendent? All right, so let me just. So you.
Thank you, through the chair, we are on page 151, 177. There's no attached memo or motion with this. It is the 2025 climate change accountability report. Energy manager Brian Leslie authored and has shared, so it's there for your information.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. I'm just going to open up the floor to any questions. And again, I appreciate if you're able to answer questions tonight, and if not, we can always report back. Trustee Gagnon, go ahead. Need me halfway. How generous of you.
So the question is pertaining to greenhouse gas emissions, and I know that is probably more of a question for Brian than the associate superintendent, but in the report on page 7, it notes that due to the lack of rainfall in British Columbia 2025, we saw less of a decline in our greenhouse gas emissions because rather than relying on clean energy provided from hydroelectric energy, we had to rely on fossil fuels to make up that difference, which then made our greenhouse gas emissions greater. drought is not something that's going away with climate change in the near future, so how are we accommodating for that going forward? With the understanding that this will impact our goals for 2030 and beyond for greenhouse gas emissions.
Thank you, Trustee Lanier. We'll turn to the staff and who's best placed to speak to them. Of course, yeah.
So when we do a boiler upgrade right now, we're actually setting this to add an air source heat pump, which will allow it, so we actually use the outside air in order to heat our schools. So we're setting up right now the, we're not get there yet, so we're doing it a little bit at a time, but hopefully by 5 years down the road, we're adding normal air sources. And then we're also dealing with paper consumption, which you'll notice there, I think the paper consumption, we decreased it about 21% since we started this scorecard, so that's another good way. And then our fleet too, we're trying to go to adding a lot of electric charging stations, so a lot of our bus trips, our field trips are now done using our electric buses. And we're trying, once we can afford it, we'll start using our white food. A little bit.
Any other questions in relation to the sewers funding accountability report?
I'll try to form it as a question, but I more of an observation. Seeking feedback. When I see transition away from paper, I'm also mindful that I'm reading more and more reports about how students actually learn better when they write, as opposed to interacting solely with the keyboard. That it develops brain in a different way that provides for more comprehensive, more in-depth reading and understanding of the information. So while I acknowledge that transitioning away from paper might be one way to reduce our footprint, I want to make sure that we're also balancing that against the needs for the most effective educational opportunities for our students. And I don't know if anyone who is actually in the schools right now has any sense of whether that is occurring or whether they continue to use pen, pencil, and paper on an ongoing basis with at least some grade levels.
I'm going to turn to the associate superintendent, who probably was the best place to speak to that.
Thank you. And through the chair, trustee Painter, I think that's something we could absolutely always conscious of, and balance on, different ways in which the students are engaging what they're learning, and the age appropriateness of what we're doing. So as we take away one thing, we have to be aware of what we're replacing with. So it's really good.
Do we have a district level approach for like our K-3 early learning? Are we at all limiting screen time or?
Sure.
Thank you. Yes. Technology devices in K-2, we will not allow the devices at that rate. With that, a year or so ago. So, as I say, it's something we need to be very conscious of at the very learning when we're looking at how we're supporting them.
Any other questions about the accountability report? I just have one. I know that after the board passed the climate action plan, we implemented what we called the climate action plan implementation review ad hoc committee. It's quite a mouthful. But I understand that that work of that committee has been suspended, or the committee has been disbanded. If that is right, was there a plan in place to oversee the implementation of the climate action plan, obviously, which directly supports the climate accountability reporting we do every year? If you could give us an update on that, that would be appreciated.
Thank you through the chair, that ad hoc committee was a working group. And this plan was shared at length, and Brian presented to the working group and shared this along with that and presented it. So there were parents and community members and different people that know this.
Thank you very much. It's great to hear that it's turned into a working group. Sounds like a collaborative model. Thank you very much. Okay, any other questions relating to the 2025 climate change accountability group? Okay, I'm gonna move this on. There is no recommended motion this evening. It's there for information. The next item on our agenda is the Public Interest Disclosure Act. This is the annual report for the Greater Victoria School District for the fiscal year 2026. And again, I'll turn the floor over to the Associate Superintendent.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, you'll find this on page 178 of the packet. This is, as mentioned, an annual report. It needs to be done, sometimes referred to the whistleblower act. You will see Superintendent Whitney has signed that there have been no reports this year, so it's all zero, so there's nothing to share or report on this.
All right, thank you very much. Subject to any questions, yeah, Trustee Cole.
Yeah, just to clarify, the fiscal year is July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026, or is this the previous year? The report just says fiscal year 2026.
Yeah, it says fiscal year 2026.
2025.
School year. School year.
Oh,
It says fiscal.
that's
Fiscal year, okay, thank you.
I think fiscal year, you're the person who says, yeah. So fiscal year, I think each year at the end of June 2026. Yeah.
So sorry, follow up on me.
Yeah, so this, just to clarify, so the Associate Superintendent is going to clarify that your end is in fact June of this year. And Trustee Bonnie, as well.
Yeah, sorry, so just to follow up, if it is the fiscal year, I'm just assuming this would be updated for the end of June, since we're not quite there yet. And I mean, you can clarify when you get.
And the Associate Superintendent is just confirming that he will clarify if there's any other reporting between now and the end of the fiscal year. Any other questions, comments in relation to H? Okay, again, there is no recommended motion, so I'm going to move us on our agenda to I, and this is a summary of abandoned board policies. And again, I'll turn the floor over to the Associate Superintendent.
Thank you. Again, with the chair, you will find this on page 179 to 185. Request to put the policies have been abandoned, so they're all listed there on those pages with the rationale. So I read them all up to you. They are there for you to see. There's no recommended motion, so it's for information.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent Arts. All right, trustees and partners. So opening the floor for any questions, comments, or discussion. Yeah, Trustee, go ahead.
Sorry, yes, and I guess my question is really, there's a lot of mentions of it should be in another policy, or it is in another policy, or it's an administrative procedure, and for myself, it would be really helpful to see kind of where those have moved and what's happening with that. So that's kind of a piece I think that I'm missing in here as to what's kind of happened with those policies. The other thing is going on the website, we have the new ones, so you can't really see if there's revisions or what that policy actually said beforehand. So it would be helpful to have kind of the old policy to see kind of what's been changed and suspended or abandoned, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think for myself, I think I need more information than what's been provided so far. Appreciate what has been provided so far though.
Thank you, Trustee Kwan. Any other questions in relation to this particular item? Perhaps we want to consider giving some direction so that it's clear what it is we're asking for. And so that the next time we revisit the subject, we have everything that we need. Yeah, and before we look to any further direction, I just want to again open the floor one more time to partners. If you have anything that you wanted to add or discuss in relation to this item under I, summary of abandoned policies. Okay, trustee Quan, go ahead.
And if I may speak through the chair to the partners, I'm sure that's allowed. Just wanting to kind of clarify whether, I know that there's been some maybe policy discussions at our partner table, but wondered how much of the work was involved at that partner table. Yeah, I guess that's my next question. And maybe.
Yeah, I think you can pose that to our staff and then partners if they wish to comment, they can. Associate Superintendent Arts, are you able to comment on the way that policy development and indeed in respect to these abandoned policies, what the process was that was used in order to reach decisions?
Thank you, through the chair. This was a conversation that took place both at board meetings and partner table meetings. Which work that was happening on policies that is not finished, they may continue or may not moving forward. So so policies will go up to the partner table or the board or both, where we discussed in past publication.
Okay, so I'm just gonna pause here for a second, just to check in with our partners to see if there's anything else that you wanted to add before I turn back to my colleagues. Okay, all right, trustees, yeah, trustee Quan, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a motion that I'd like to put forward. I think there's some rationale for it after I read it out. And it's that the Board of Education of Greater Victoria State District number 61, or however that has to be read. Immediately suspend the implementation of all policy revisions and abandonments enacted since January 2025, pending further review, and further direct the superintendent to provide all documentation regarding these policy changes, including new policies, revisions, and administrative procedures to the board and the members of the partners table by July 1st, 2026 for detailed examination and recommendations to the board. And if I may just quickly, you know, I feel that I need a little more information, and so, you know, I really like to kind of go through those step by step, and I would really like to hear at the partners table kind of the input as to, you know, rationale or how, you know, what the feelings are about those. And so it's just a step in the right direction to take, kind of slow down and be able to understand kind of what happened since January 30th, 2025. Yeah, would love to hear feedback.
So trustee Quan, you're moving that motion.
Sorry, moving it, yes.
Okay. I'm just gonna look to our colleagues for a second. Trustee Bio? Okay. Okay, and just for clarity, would you mind, trustee Quan, just reading that one more time, just so that, do you want me to email?
Yeah.
And then we email it to the secretary treasurer?
Sure.
Perfect.
So it's that the Board of Education of Greater Victoria School District number 61 immediately suspend the implementation of all policy revisions and abandonments enacted since January 2025, pending further review. And further, direct the superintendent to provide all documentation regarding these policy changes, including new policies, revisions, and administrative procedures to the board and the members of the partners table by July 1st, 2026 for detailed examination and recommendations to the board.
Thank you, trustee Quan. Okay, so I'm just gonna open the floor for discussion, and then secretary treasurer, trustee Quan is just gonna email that to you so that you can just copy and paste it into the record. Okay, so while trustee Quan is doing that, I'm gonna open the floor first to our partners. All right.
Yeah, I understand that folks who weren't here do have questions about what happened with policy. And when I see the list of them, it's striking to me that it was that many. I don't recall us looking at that many. Yeah, seeing my partners having the same feelings, not to say that it didn't happen, but just that it's not in my memory. My memory of the policy work that was done, a lot of things that the partners saw as archaic, some things that we expressed concerns around. And then also there was some work around the policy, the partner table on what kind of policies might come forward. But I do see the questions and I understand the concern.
We also have a few issues, but I can bring that up on the first, is that what I understand?
Yeah,
Okay.
so everything we provided, the motions passed by the board by July 1st to give some time to look through documentation in anticipation for that partners table meeting that we're hoping to schedule in early August. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. All right, trustees. We have against Secretary Treasurer, we have a second minute, and you've recorded those. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I'm just gonna open the, oh, yeah, Secretary Treasurer, go ahead. Judith.
All right, I got the motion. I'm just seeking a little bit of clarity on what the first part means. It says immediately suspend implementation of all policy revisions and abandon. What does that mean? Where suspend?
Yeah. So basically, it would mean, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, trustee Kwan, I didn't understand the intention. It would basically mean it would be put on hold pending review. So we wouldn't be doing anything with them until we've reviewed at the partners table in August. And then recommendations for how to proceed to come forward following that. Is that right? That's not the intention?
Yes, and if I may, that's my understanding, and I think that the reason we want to do it as quickly as that is so that, you know, we're disturbing as least as possible the school year as we can, so, you know, wanting to make sure that we examine those before we go into a new school year.
So just to be clear, if the policy was suspended or abandoned, let's use abandoned, because there are no numbers suspended.
Okay.
If it was abandoned, is it remaining abandoned, it's just being held there for review? Or that's what I'm not clear, or does it like now exist again? I'm not clear on what's happening with them in the meantime.
So yeah, my intent with putting this together is that, you know, those go back into play until we have a chance to re-examine everything. So we're basically kind of, you know, the same thing we did with the bylaws, but it's not a permanent one, it's just until we can examine.
And to clarify again, because what's clarity is a good thing. The understanding is that these particular abandoned policies, the contention is that they actually don't reflect current practice. You see that throughout the report. And so one of the things that can be reviewed, because clearly if they don't reflect current practice, they're not actually being implemented. And so one of the things that can be reviewed is, like as a group, is, okay, if that's not the current practice, what is the current practice? And do we need to perhaps look at updating to reflect current practice, for instance, rather than simply abandoning? That might be one of the considerations that we discuss as a group, or perhaps we combine things together. So yeah, is that sufficient for you? Okay, wonderful. Okay, all right, I'm gonna go back one more time to the partners just to see if there's anything else that you wanted to add before I look to my colleagues and call the question. Okay, all right, trustees, is there any discussion before I call the question? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor, with the show of hands. And that is unanimous, thank you very much. Okay, so moving on now in our packet to J, and this is a summary of the implementation of the safety plan.
Chair, can I do a point of personal privilege? Just ask that we turn it over. So
Yes, absolutely. So trustee Van was just asking that we now turn the lights on, it's gotten quite dark. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Let's go better maybe, but the evening. Okay, so we are at J, and this is a summary of the implementation of the safety plan. I'm gonna turn the floor over to Associate Superintendent.
Thank you very much. So you'll find this in your backup on page 186 and 187. Superintendent Richard put a non-medical letter with a summary of the safety plan implementation. And meetings and steps that took place. Just one recommended motion with this, it's there for information for you.
Thank you, Associate Superintendent. Okay, we start off the floor first to our conference. If there's anything that you would like to raise or discuss about this item? Okay, so I'm going to turn to colleagues. Do you have any questions or anything else that you would like to discuss in relation to this item? There's a couple of things. I'm not seeing any of my colleagues' hands, so I'll just jump in here. Just in terms of a copy of the implementation plan and a copy of any kind of annual review report that was conducted. A copy of the correspondence and communication with the Ministry of Education and Childcare about the safety plan and implementation plan, consultation and review of the plans. So that's quite a mouthful. Did you want us to put that into a motion? Would that be better? Let me just turn that into a motion so there's some clarity. Okay, Secretary Treasurer, I'm just gonna send you the list of items that we're asking for. And then we can just put it into a motion with the usual preamble. So just coming to you now. And while you're reviewing that, I'll just, again, for the partners' benefit, so we're gonna put together a motion just to direct that a copy of the implementation plan, a copy of the annual review report, a copy of any and all correspondence and communication with the Minister of Education and Childcare regarding but not limited to the safety plan implementation, consultation, and review of the plans be provided to the board. And I think, to the partners, I don't think any of this subject to the staff, the Secretary Treasurer or the Associate Superintendent. I'm assuming that this can be also circulated to our partners as well. And again, I think it would be useful to have this information by, again, that July 1st deadline, so that we can also have dialogue at the partners table in August. So perhaps we want to add by July 1st, 2026. Okay, I think we've crafted on the fly with some assistance, a motion just to make sure it's clear what it is that we're asking. Before I look to a mover and a seconder, Secretary Treasurer, is that sufficiently clear from your perspective? Yeah, from this Secretary Treasurer is indicating that yes, it is. Thank you, Secretary Treasurer. Okay, trustees, looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Bio, seconded by Trustee Daniel. Any discussion? First, I'm going to turn to our partners. Yes, 1 second, just bringing Walter home.
Thanks, yeah, yes, I am in favor of this motion. We'd like to see all of that as well. And one thing I noticed in the summary of the implementation of the safety plan is that teachers and educational assistants are really not included in those implementation discussions, whereas well, I think that when you're talking about student safety, educational assistants and teachers are primary in making sure that students are safe at school. So yeah, Curious to see this. I hope this motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Go to any other comments or questions from partners? I'm going to turn to my colleagues. Any discussion before I call the question? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, the show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay.
Sorry, sure. You give a reverse it.
Trustee Bio and trustee Carmichael. Of course. Just confirming we can move to use something. Okay, so I'm not gonna forget, before we move on to the secretary treasurer's report, we have added the trustee questions section to the agenda. And so again, just for folks who've never attended a board meeting, this is an opportunity for trustees to ask questions that they have. We will pose those questions to the senior leadership team, and if they can answer them in the meeting, they will, and if not, they'll come back to us at an appropriate juncture with the information. So trustees, we're at trustee questions. Does anybody have any questions? Trustee Page, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm not expecting answers tonight. This is gonna take a little bit. Received a letter caused me some concern. It had to do with the
Which were booked until 8:30, so I'm guessing that it was not. Is it all just about?
Right, trustee Linder, family.
Graham.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to do with the number of classrooms that were projected to exceed contract language regarding students with individual education plans. And this was mentioned at one school, but what I really appreciate is a breakdown of how many classrooms we're anticipating across the district by school that are in the same situation.
Associate Superintendent Arts, is that a question best posed to you?
It's a question best posed to me, but I don't think that's written in this.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, trustee Page, you had another question?
Yeah, just to follow on with the presentations earlier, I would really appreciate just a summary report of the current level of support that we are providing to deaf and hard of hearing students across the district. That would include number of teachers and interpreters, how many students are falling into this category. I'm just mindful that a couple of years ago, the district went to what I understood was significant effort to accommodate a blind student or one or more blind students, and that I was very supportive of this at the time. And I'd like to think that other students who have similar challenges getting into conventional learning environment are going to be similarly supported.
Thank you, Trustee. Is that something that we can come back at an appropriate juncture? Perhaps that's our next, maybe perhaps at the standing committee tables, but we can discuss that. Or via email. And so just to clarify, just maybe you'd like to know sort of what, besides that data, what the current service model is
What
and what has been proposed.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just for clarity.
What are the current supports we're offering?
Yeah.
In our district?
Yeah, and then what is being proposed. Any other trustee questions? Okay, I don't see any hands, so I'm gonna move on. We have the secretary treasurer's report. The first item is the 2026 trustee election and the appointment of election officers. Secretary treasurer, I'm gonna, I was not roll my phone over. And apparently I can be trained. So Whenever you're ready, before I Sure. Yes, included in the agenda practices and manuals specific, specific to the 2026 trustee election. The first one being related to the appointment of election officers. This is on page 188. As per sections 58(1) and 58(2) of the Local Government Act, school districts must appoint one chief election officer and one or more deputy chief election officers. The chief election officer is responsible for the overall administration and conduct of the 2026 general school election. And the deputy CPOs are responsible to support. I just thought maybe we didn't have the speaker on. So, thank you. I need to start over. Well, perhaps, so just, were you able to hear the secretary trigger? No, okay, oh, sorry, thank you. I'll keep it short. So basically, sections 58(1) and 58(2) of the Local Government Act require the school district to appoint a chief election officer and one or more deputy chief election officers. So included in this memo are 4 motions. There is 1 chief election officer being appointed, Ann Dahl, and then 3 deputy chief election officers. Lynn Mary, myself, and Kelly Gorman, who is the executive assistant to the secretary treasurer. So there are recommended motions in the package for you. Thank you very much, Secretary Turner. Okay, so we have a number of recommended motions, all of which help us to support for the local election that's coming. The first recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, appoint Ann Dole as Chief Election Officer to administer and conduct the 2026 general school election on October 17th, 2026. I'm going to turn to our partners just to see if there's anything that you would like to add or any questions that you have in respect to these, and if not, I'll probably move through this quite quickly, if that suits everybody. Okay, to my colleagues for mover and seconder, moved by trustee Gagnon, seconded by trustee Kwong. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. The second recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 in Greater Victoria appoint Lynn, is it Mary? Mary, yeah. As Deputy Chief Election Officer to assist the Chief Election Officer in the administration of the 2026 general school election on October 17th, 2026. Again, looking to my colleagues for a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Kwan, seconded by trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? Trustee Kwan, go ahead.
Just a quick question, for through the chair for, a member of staff, with regards to 3 deputies and just, how that compares to elections we've done in the past and whether that's something that's kind of a normal practice for us.
Secretary Treasurer? Yeah, I can answer that question. Historically, for the school district past elections, we've had the chief election officer, who is an external, and then 2 deputy chief election officers. So in this case, we'll have 3 deputy chief election officers. The team of CEO or chief election officer and deputy, the 2 and all and then Mary are external. And combined, they have the requisite knowledge and skills to carry out the election. And then myself and Kelly are here in the board office to receive nomination packages and also to assist with the administrative items that would be best suited to us, which could be posted on the website, public notice, and those sorts of things. So there would be more on the technical aspects of the election, and it would be more on the administrative. Oh, wonderful, yeah, follow up, trustee Paul, go ahead.
And sorry, and just for the benefit of everyone here, in past elections that we've seen both external chief election officer as well as a deputy as external.
In our last two elections, we just had an external election.
Great, thank you very much. All right, any other discussion, questions, trustees, before I call the question? Okay, think, so, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so maybe just a further question about then seeing the need and why we might have added an external deputy this time around.
Secretary.
The last time we had a contract with the chief election officer to complete all of the duties, and in case we had two people who were splitting the duties, so a deputy will assist the CEO, and in their absence will take on those responsibilities. So I think it's in our best interest to have them look, and then he would be kind of backed up if necessary.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Okay, subject to any further questions, I'm going to call the question. All right, all those in favor with show of hands? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees, and thank you, Secretary Treasurer, for those points of clarification. All right, we have another recommended motion that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, appoint Katrina Scribe as Deputy Chief Election Officer to assist the Chief Election Officer in the administration of the 2026 general school election on October 17th, 2026. May I have a mover? Thank you, trustee Khan, and seconded by trustee Carmichael. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you. There's one more recommended motion in respect to the general election. That the Board of Education of School District 61, Greater Victoria, appoint Kelly Gorman as Deputy Chief Election Officer to assist the Chief Election Officer in the administration of the 2026 general school election on October 17th, 2026. Trustees, may I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by trustee Gagnon and seconded by trustee Bio. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor with show of hands? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Okay, that brings us to the bylaw 9005 trustee elections. Secretary Treasurer, did you want to present this in? Well, you go ahead and then you let me know when you're done, and we'll work through the recommended motions.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to highlight that, with each election, the section 45 of the School Act requires the board to establish procedures governing the conduct of such elections. And so, included in the agenda package starting on page 29 is the memo. And then I've also included the original bylaw, the one that is standing right now, one with track changes, and then a plain version. I'll just highlight that the changes that have been made reflect the new multiple trustee electoral areas, as well as current legislative requirements, any administrative updates to election procedures, and also establish the election procedures applicable to each trustee electoral area. So this bylaw was drafted in consultation with legal counsel, just to make sure it is in compliance with the various legislation. Just note too that it does need to be approved by early July and then implemented by early August.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer. Okay. I'm going to open the floor first because this is sort of a new section to our partners. If there is any questions or any points of clarification that you would like to make. Okay, hearing none, we have two recommended motions, trustees. The first is that the Board of Education School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, agree to give all three readings of bylaw 9005 trustee elections at the regular board meeting on June 15th, 2026. And just a reminder that this would have to carry unanimously. All right, subject to any questions of clarification or comments or discussion, I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. Colleagues, trustee Gagnon, seconded by trustee Bio. So is there any discussion in relation to this one? Yeah, trustee Painter, go ahead.
I know it's going to be an inconvenience and probably a full vote following, but I have serious concerns about this, this particular bylaw. the manner in which consultation was completed, and what it means for democratic representation across our district. I will not be supporting it, and I will not be voting in favor of all three readings tonight.
Thank you, trustee Painter. Any other comments? Yeah, trustee Plum, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll second trustee Painter's sentiments and just add that, you know, this particular board of trustees wasn't involved at all in the decision making or any of that, you know, information that was provided to it. So, yeah, I'm not gonna support this either. I'd like to know a little bit more about how we got to this point before doing anything.
Okay, trustee, so what I'm hearing is that perhaps we want to be tabling this with a request to staff for some additional information. Yeah, okay. Okay, so may I have a mover and a seconder to do that, to table it pending further information? Yeah, okay, trustee Painter's moving that and seconded by trustee Vaughn, okay. Okay, so any discussion in relation to the motion to table this pending further information from staff? Okay. All right, hearing none, I'm going to call the question on the motion to table this pending further information from staff. All those in favor, please show of hands. All those opposed? Okay, so we've got the balance of the board in favor and trustee Gagnon opposed. Okay, so just keeping in mind the timeline here, Secretary Treasurer, can you please just confirm when this needs to be finalized? So following further information coming back about how we got to this point, what is the date that this needs to be finalized?
I'll have to confirm the exact date. It's either July 6th or 7th, but so I put. It depends on how you interpret the 56 days prior. Yeah, so I would say the first week of July.
Okay. And so can I ask them that you come back with information as soon as possible, just so that we can have time to consider it and then come back to the table to review? And with that timeline.
You're on what? You're asking.
Thank you. I'll come back to you with a list. Yeah. Okay. All right, so we're gonna move then on to B, and this is the 2027-2028 annual 5-year capital plan. And this is an item, I'm gonna turn the floor over to you, Secretary Treasurer, to present for us.
And I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Facility Services, Marty. And there's our presentation as well that goes along with it.
Great. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
So, these are the capital funding budgets, so major this last night, the school expansion and renovation or replacement program. And minor capital has the carbon neutral, school enhancement, the food infrastructure and the playground. So I'll talk about a little bit about all of these. And show you folks the next slide. Oh, gosh. So the SASNet projects, we were not actually funded this year for any SASNet projects. So you'll see the same SASNet projects last year was shoreline continuing to be our #1 priority. And these are eight SASNet risk within the school district. Some of the dollar values have changed just slightly based on construction knowledge. The next funding would be the addition project. So this is just funding used to increase the capacity of our existing schools. Reynolds and Cedarville remain on the list, and we've added Central just based on our enrollment knowledge that we have. So that's an addition this year. The next one is replacement and renovation. This is a new to us funding that we're using this year. So this funding is used to rebuild or renovate a school. As Jim Burns said, it's got the same exterior structural damage, if you will, as Oakland's. So this is the budget that as Jay Burns said onto that.
And then our contrary minor capital submission, so carbon neutral, this is, CNCP, it's to decrease our carbon emissions. All of these here are for boiler upgrades. The Strawberry Vale being, our number one priority, it's got one single boiler and it's leaking already. School enhancement, this covers a little bit more broader. Lots of renovations just to help, extend the life of our facilities. Roofing, there's so much we can add in here, but our number one priority is the wood shop and air handling units at Monrick Park. And then South Park, which is designated as a heritage site. There's some vestibule entrances and some, the annex, a little bit of, work that needs to be done there. And Spectrum, we're starting, some window upgrades at Spectrum, and then there's phase 1 and 2 of the rest of the, upgrades there. Food infrastructure. We put Hillcrest just as a school, but there's a number of schools for this one, and it's mainly to support our student nutrition within our schools. So to upgrade a current kitchen or to rebuild a new kitchen, add a kitchen, whatever that may be. So there's 275,000, and there's a number of schools that are there that we're asking for funding for. And I think the next one is our last one is the playground enhancement program. And this is to add accessible equipment within our district. And we didn't get any funding for this again this year, so the same ones are on this year as was last year. And Craig Flower is our number one priority. I think that's the last slide, please. Questions?
Thank you very much. Trustees and also partners, I'm gonna open the floor to everybody at this time of night. So if you have any questions in relation to the capital fund, and the funding, trustee Beach, you want to kick us off? Go ahead.
Sorry, sidebar or tangential question. Air handling units for wood shops. What was the situation with Cedar Hill at all? Happened while we were away.
Was Cedar Hill that happened already?
It's my recollection that was going to be like an add-on or something.
No, so right now there's a shop at Cedar Hill, there's not a wood shop. And there is an option, if you'll notice, in the addition portion. Cedar Hill is a 200-seat addition, and we did put potential money in there to add a wood shop, it's as an option.
Yeah, because that was,
Yeah.
the board was pretty specific about
Yeah.
wanting to have those.
But that is in the upgrade edition, we'd never be able to put it in SAP because it's something new. Which we're not allowed to do.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, trustee Ponte.
Yeah, and I'm actually just wondering more about, like timelines, I know, like, so when we're requesting this, what timelines are we looking at for some of these projects if we were approved?
Well, we wouldn't get our funding approval letter until about March of next year. So it all depends if we get funding. So once, like, we're talking about Cedar Hill, we have to get an architect involved, get drawings involved, get permits. So you're at least a year to a year and a half after that approval deadline.
Yeah, trustee Gannon.
It's not really a question, it's just more of a comment that if the government of British Columbia is so very concerned about the safety of students in this district and the province, that maybe they should consider seismic mitigation instead of forcing their students into an unsafe workplace. It's a little hypocritical, if you ask me, and I'm a little disgusted by the fact that this is a thing that we have to keep kicking down the road again and again. Just do it.
Trustee Gannon. I have a question, just to, if I may, about shorelines. I just want to clarify, are we ready to go? So it's at the top of our list. Are we ready to go with a plan? And has that plan been approved and has consultation taken place so that if we do get approval of this coming this fall, that we can get going?
No. It's a short question. So we have to go through a full project definition report with the ministry. So we'd still have to consult, we have to consult with the nations, we'd have to consult with our community, we'd have to do all that and continue with our PDR. The PDR takes a good 1.5 to 2 years to finish. It'd be expedited a little bit if everybody agrees and if the project budget agrees. So that we're a number of years.
So just a follow-up, if I may. So in order to get that project moving, we would have to do the consultation within the approval period?
Well, there's not, yes, so we have to do a project definition report, that's what we first start off with.
And in that is consultation. So we can't start PDR until we get approval from the ministry, so we need their assistance with the PDR.
So it's through that PDR development that we would do the consultation. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yes, Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that, we have had conversations with both, Foundation and Foundation about, shoreline continuing to be on the capital plan. And, wanting to start to have conversations about what that might look like, so that should we get approval in the future, that we're not starting those conversations at that. So we're very early, in those conversations, but we have had them, this year.
Okay, and that's really good to hear. Yeah, just because you're obviously don't want to see that project delayed, so that. Anything else? I'm just looking over the partners before I come back to trustees. Yeah. Do you have something that you wanted to add? I did want to make sure your hand, Emily. Me? Oh, yeah. Oh, I thought you were something good. Oh, yeah, my hand was my big story. Oh, okay, no problem. Don't want to miss anybody. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to my colleagues. Trustee Kwan, I think you were first, and then trustee Gagnon, did you have your hand up as well? Sorry, also on the please. Okay, good. Go ahead.
Mine was, but I had my hand up before.
Okay.
So I guess my question with that would be, what is really the blocker that, that is happening with that, specific, project right now with Shoreline and, what, is there any actions that need to be taken that can, help with removing, that blocker or anything?
In terms of budget approval?
Project approval or budget approval, or if there's anything else that is being held up that might be,
Secretary Treasurer, you're not sure? Is there anything in particular?
All I can say is there's no, like, no seismic planning that used to be either. We're still waiting on the approval of previous projects that were approved for up to business fees for seismic funding, so, I think probably a barrier on that, at least from the ministry's perspective at this time. As to, like, I think we need to continue to have our conversations with the nations, and we want to, move ahead of that, and I think that's most important. Before there's any advocacy one way or another.
The other high priority school listed, is I noticed is still Reynolds, still, and that's been there for some time, that we're now looking for an addition to accommodate increased enrollment that we're projecting. Do we see that as a risk? So if we get, or as a kind of nudge for some ministry approval, because obviously a building has been in need of replacement for, I believe, decades, and also been speaking in a term. If we end up with an addition rather than just a replacement, maybe not the best outcome, or is it, in your experience, and I guess this is really for the Secretary Treasurer, a prod when we ask for an addition, because we're projecting so much increased enrollment for the ministry to approve the main project.
So when we were having conversations with the ministry, they were at that time, they were funding additions, not seismic upgrades. So putting Reynolds on as an addition school, thought was we could get the addition, we know exactly where it's supposed to be. And then we could ask to get seismic funding afterwards, then we could do the rest of the school at that time. So it's kind of too complicated.
Okay, great, that's good to know the strategy. Thank you. Any other questions or in respect to the capital planning? We've got two recommended motions, and if there isn't, I'm gonna start to move these, but again, I just want to pause, partners, if there is anything that you want to raise in terms of these two motions around major and minor capital programs, please let us know. Okay, so the first motion is major capital programs, and the recommended motion is that the Board of Education School District number 61 Greater Victoria approve the proposed 5-year capital plan, major capital programs for 2027-2028 as provided on 5-year capital plan summary for 2027-2028 for submission to the Ministry of Infrastructure. Right, I'm gonna look to your colleagues for a mover and a seconder. Moved by trustee Bio, do I have a seconder? Trustee Peter, thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor with show of hands? And that is unanimous. Our second motion is related to minor capital programs, and the motion is that the Board of Education School District number 61, Greater Victoria, approve the proposed 5-year capital plan, minor capital programs for 2027-2028, as provided on the 5-year capital plan summary for 2027-2028, for submission to the Ministry of Infrastructure. May I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by trustee Painter, seconded by trustee Vigneault. Any discussion, trustees? All right, hearing none, all those in favor with a show of hands? And that is unanimous. Okay, thank you to the staff and thank you to the board. That's exciting. Move those things along. Yeah, so I'm gonna check in first with the secretary treasurer. Can you remind me? Is it 10 p.m. is our hard stop? It's 10:30. Okay, well, okay, so I think we can continue through our agenda for a little bit. When I'm looking at the room, and I know everybody's tired. Yeah, don't worry, we're not gonna go to 10:30. And we will, I know it's really hot and in fact, we can take a 5-minute break for a comfort break if folks need it, or do you want to power through? Are we gonna power through? Okay.
Just go with me.
Okay, let's do it. There's consensus in the room. We'll power through. Okay, we're at C, the Spectrum Artificial Turf Field update, and we're at I, Artificial Turf update. I'm gonna turn it over to the Secretary Treasurer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Keep it short. The motion that's included in the agenda package is regarding a contribution agreement from the District of Saanich. 300,000 that their council has approved. On May 4th, the contribution agreement that's included in the agenda package did go to them. It has been approved. It now just requires approval from our board so that I can execute it and we can request the funding.
This is always a good news story, so to speak, when we get funding from a municipality to support a project like this, so it's great news. I'm gonna open the floor first to questions from partners about this item, if there's anything. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to my colleagues. Any discussion or questions you want to ask before I call from the witness center? Yeah, trustee Clark, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I read that, that you met with the District of Saanich because they did have some concerns before, basically pledging this amount, and just wondered if you could kind of summarize, some of their concerns and how those were answered. Yeah, Chair, I included the 3 items that they were looking for, covered off in this contribution agreement. One of them was specific to the infill and making sure that it didn't contain 6 PPD chemicals. They also had some questions around the stormwater management system, and also if there were any trees that were going to be planted. So I confirmed with them and they've received all of the reports that satisfy those agreements. I have an email that says that these requirements have been met. Hence the approval from the council.
Correct. Any other questions before I look for the seconder? Okay, so the motion is that the Board of Education School District number 61, Greater Victoria, approve the agreement with the District of Saanich for a one-time contribution of 300,000 to support the construction of an artificial turf field at Spectrum Community School for execution by the Secretary Treasurer. Right, may I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by trustee Kwan and seconded by trustee Bayo. Any discussion before I call it? All right, all those in favor with a show of hands? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay. We're moving on to D, and this is the Vic High Caledonia truck turnaround right of way bylaw. Secretary Treasurer, okay, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this one is, there is an existing statutory right of way that exists. It was registered on the property in 2021. And it was registered as statutory right of way to allow city service vehicles to turn around at the end of Grant Street. The area of that statutory right of way was 65.1 square meters. And for anyone who doesn't know, Caledonia is a construction project. Construction is complete. Due to building encroachments on the statutory right of way, the city and CRHC, who is leasing the land from us, agreed that they would update the statutory right of way once construction was complete.
In 2021, when statutory right of way was registered, we were not the owner of the land. After all the land transfers and consolidation of the lot that was then leased to CRHC, we are now the owner of the land. And so, the board is required to, approve, this new statutory right of way. Really, the only difference is that the area of the statutory right of way is reduced. So 165.1 is now 17.5, so significant reduction. Because the statutory right of way is putting a charge on the land, so what will happen is the old one will be discharged and this new one will be added. It's considered disposal according to ministerial order. And so we have to pass 3 readings of the disposal bylaw, and as I mentioned, the new statutory right of way will replace the existing one. So this is not a new one. I've included the copy of the full bylaw in the agenda package, and there is a shortened version that's in the agenda package that can be read 3 times. Will require approval to do 3 readings this evening, carried unanimously.
Thank you, Secretary. I did notice, and perhaps I just missed it, that the plans are not highlighted. And so I was expecting like the change to be highlighted.
Okay.
Can you point
Yeah,
out
let me
where the
see if I can
changes?
find. It's still quite small, but if you look on page 238 and expand it out. I'll just try to describe.
Sorry, 238, you said.
Okay. But I just moved to a different page. Okay, so if you look at the bottom left corner, I think you could see, so that you can see, the bottom left is, there's a rectangle, and then there's a little square that's in bold that says SRW. The outline that's above it in the larger rectangle is the former SRW. So it's in the same spot, it's just like significantly reduced. Still a rectangle, but smaller. That makes sense.
Can you see it? It's our shape identification portion of our meeting. Okay, so just to clarify, so bottom left side of the plan.
Yeah.
There's a bolded rectangle.
Yes.
Below what appears to be a perforated line, which forms a rectangle.
Probably, okay. Yes.
And that, so the perforated line and the bolded piece at the bottom is the current right of way. And what's being proposed is to shrink that down to the bolded portion only.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Trustees, is that clear in terms of what we're looking at? Okay. And have there been any concerns, like have we gone out and discussed this at all with the school community, or is there any concerns or impacts from the school perspective of this change?
I honestly, I don't think it would impact the school at all.
At all?
Yeah.
Just, yeah, okay, great. Okay. All right, so partners, with that clarification in mind, are there any questions about what's being proposed? Trustees, any questions about what's being proposed? Now's the time. Okay, so I'm gonna take us back to our motion, if there's no questions from anybody. And just read that into the record. Okay, so again, this is the bylaw reading, and again, as the Secretary Travers clarified, we would need
a unanimous motion in order to move all three meetings this evening. The first recommended motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria agree to give all three readings of the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria Caledonia truck turnaround disposal right of way of real property bylaw 26-01 at the regular board meeting on June 15th, 2026. I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder, moved by trustee Bio, and is there a seconder? Trustee Gagnon. All right, trustees, any questions in respect to this? Yeah.
No questions, I'll speak to it. I'm not going to really give readings, sorry folks. The Big Five is very contentious and about the way the land is used, so,
Okay, thank you, trustee Kwan. Any other comments before I call the question? I mean, if the first motion doesn't pass unanimously, then we can do the pause, we can do the first two readings. Yeah. Okay, so we can look to do the first two readings if that's the will of the board. Okay, any other comments in relation to this particular one? Or any questions or any discussion before I call the question? And you reported the mover and seconder, we're good there? Yeah, okay. Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands? All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so hold on, I'm gonna do it again. All those in favor? Okay, so there's 3 in favor, so it's, and all those opposed? Okay, so we have, trustee Duncan, trustee Bio, and trustee Painter in favor, trustee Kwan, trustee Gagnon, and trustee Carmichael opposed. Right, took me a minute, thanks for your patience. Okay, and so that means that we will not do all 3 readings, but we can proceed to the first and second reading this evening. And so I'm gonna move to our next motion, and that's longer, so bear with me, I'll try to be as quick as I can. With the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria, the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria, Caledonia truck turnaround disposal right of way of real property bylaw 26-01 in accordance with section 68 subsection 3 of the School Act, British Columbia. The Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria, Caledonia truck turnaround right of way bylaw 26-01, the bylaw approves the statutory right of way and section 219 covenant in favor of the city of Victoria, the city, to permit the city and members of the general public to use a portion of the lands located at 1211 Gladstone Avenue, Victoria, British Columbia, the property, as shown outlined in bold on plan EPP 148835 for the purposes of the turnaround area for trucks and oversized vehicles attending on the property. The statutory right of way in section 219 covenant will replace an existing statutory right of way and section 219 covenant registered against title to the property in the land title office under registration numbers CA 9436385 and CA 9436386 respectively in favor of the city for the same purpose, with the only difference being that the new right-of-way area is a reduced portion of the existing right-of-way area shown in plan EPP 103338. The bylaw authorizes the Secretary Treasurer to execute the statutory right-of-way and covenant on behalf of the board. That the Board of Education of School District number 61 Greater Victoria, Caledonia truck turnaround disposal right-of-way of real property bylaw 26-01 be read a first time this 15th day of June 2026. And the last part, Secretary Treasurer, I don't need to read that until after, right? The third reading? Okay, wonderful. So we are pausing at 2026. Trustees, any discussion? Okay, seeing that, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands. Did we get a movement? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank goodness my colleagues are on it. Who would like to move this first reading? Trustee Painter, seconded by trustee Bio. That's trustee Painter that moved it, and trustee Bio that seconded. Okay, let's call the question again. All those in favor with a show of hands? And all those opposed? Okay, so that carries with everyone in favor and trustee Kwan opposed. Okay, we're gonna go to the second reading. Here we go. So the Board of Education School District number 61 Greater Victoria, the board read the Board of Education School District number 61 Greater Victoria, Caledonia truck turnaround disposal right of way of real property bylaw 26-01 in accordance with sections 68 subsection 3 of the School Act, British Columbia. The Board of Education School District number 61 Greater Victoria, Caledonia truck turnaround right of way bylaw 26-01, the bylaw approves the statutory right of way and section 219 covenant in favor of the city of Victoria, the city, to permit the city and members of the general public to use a portion of the lands located at 1211 Gladstone Avenue, Victoria, British Columbia. The property is shown outlined in bold on plan EPP 148835 for the purpose of a turnaround area for trucks and oversized vehicles attending on the property. This statutory right of way in section 219 covenant will replace an existing statutory right of way and section 219 covenant registered against title to the property in the land title office under registration numbers CA 9436385 and CA 9436386 respectively, in favor of the city for the same purpose, with the only difference being that the new right-of-way area is a reduced portion of the existing right-of-way area shown in plan EPP 103338. The bylaw authorizes the Secretary Treasurer to execute the statutory right-of-way and covenant on behalf of the board. For the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, Caledonia Truck Turnaround Disposal Right-of-Way of Real Property Bylaw 26-01B, read a second time this 15th day of June 2026. All right, trustees, so again, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder. Trustee Bayo, moving, seconded by Trustee Gagnon. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor with a show of hands. All those opposed? Okay, so it's bounced the board in favor and trustee one opposed. Thank you very much, trustees, and thank you, staff, for helping us work through yet another bylaw reading. Okay, so we are now at E. This is our quarterly capital projects updates for June 2026. Again, Secretary Treasurer, I'll turn forward to you when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. I will pass this over to Director of Facility Services, Ms. Carl.
So we have two capital projects, Cedar Hill and Uplands. So, Cedar Hill is our seismic upgrade project, and it is in timelines, the budget. So right now they're just finishing the rest of the commissioning, doing set work, some paving, installing the geothermal field and some minor deficiencies within the school building itself. So it's within the budget. And timeline expected to be done in August. Opens is the same. It's expected to be done in August of 2026. So the contractor itself is going to be done early July. And we have to move the students back in from August to opens. So right now they're working on some interior painting, some flooring, and then we'll go in the summertime and install our check packages, deal with the PA and all the good stuff. And then move the teachers back. So within budget, within timelines.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's so exciting. Do you mind if we ask questions now, or would you like us to wait till the end of your report and then we can ask them all?
Oh, that's it.
Oh, that's it. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Trustee Painter, go ahead.
Yeah, just trying to put two pieces together in the next report, so I'm jumping ahead. The discussion of building and land matters. And so back in March 2025, there was a $3.6 million local capital. So that was the contribution that agreement.
The district's
contribution. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, no, all set, thank you.
And to clarify, that come out of restricted capital in the end or out of local? Local? Well, thanks for trying. We can always try. Okay. Yeah, what great news. I mean, it's so nice to see a project. We know all the heavy lifting that goes on in order to get a project to this point where there isn't any shortfalls, big issues. So thank you so much to you and the team. Please extend our gratitude, and we're excited to see the finished product. Me too. Get the kid all of these lovely final features. So thank you. Okay. Okay, trustees, subject to any other final things, I'm gonna move us on to F. This is a summary of changes to the land and building matters across board sites. Secretary Treasurer, so you are the boss.
Yeah. So as mentioned, this is just the summary of the various public activity around land and building matters. So in some cases, I've attached the agenda package that included a memo regarding it, and in other cases, the minutes. Some of them are verbal updates, so you have to watch the video to see what they said. Just there for your information. Yeah,
That's great. Thank you. I will open it up to my colleagues, but I just want to say thank you for pulling this together to help us get up to speed as quickly as possible. It's appreciated. Trustees, yeah, trustee Colleen, go ahead.
Yeah, and curious really about the ministry restricted capital, specifically with the turf at Spectrum. I believe when it first came to the board prior to January 2025, it was presented that the only contribution that the district would be making would be the land. And so curious as to why now we've requested to access $585,000 of restricted.
I can just share that, when we went out to, procure the field, it came in like $1 million higher than anticipated. And so efforts were made to work on the scope of the project to bring that down. And in the end, we were short, $525,000. And so a decision was made to access ministry restricted capital to fund that difference and be able to move forward with the project.
Any other questions, trustees, in respect to this? Yeah, thank you.
I don't know if this is actually on scope for this question, but I'm going back a year and a half and recalling conversations about land title in the city of Victoria. This might be an in-camera type of thing, but
It might be. I'm just gonna caution you just because I wonder whether it is. Do you want to maybe just confer quietly before you ask the question in case it is?
sure.
Let's do that. Okay.
How does it draw my question?
But thank you. And yes, you talked about that. Thank you. Okay, so that, if there's nothing else in terms of the summary of the changes, then I will move us on to G, and that is the summary of the 2026-2027 annual budget development process. And again, Secretary Forster, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yeah, included in the agenda package, starting on page 257. There's a memo just summarizing the information that was gathered. And then one document that's attached with links. It's quite lengthy. One thing I will just highlight is that there is feedback that's included in the links and in the agenda package from the budget development process. And so summaries were provided previously. For all of the anonymous submissions electronically, so the surveys and any facilitator notes, those have been included, and we've redacted as best as possible any identifying information. There were emails that were sent that specifically requested that the emails or letters be included in packages, which was done. Other emails didn't request that. They do have their personal email address on there that had been redacted. In past years, myself and communications person, if it wasn't clear, used to reach out to them to see if they were okay with it being included with redacted information, and that hasn't been done. So I'm just saying that there are a lot of emails pertaining to budget feedback that have been provided to trustees in the in-camera package, and as well as handwritten comment cards and also some handwritten notes on flip charts. The rationale around that is we have provided handwritten comments in the past and have had people reach out because they felt that their handwriting was identifiable, and so we're just being careful about providing that. So that has also been provided to trustees in camera.
Thank you. That's great. No, we appreciate the trying to get the balance right between transparency and also respecting people's privacy. Okay, is there anything, trustees, from that particular update that you would like to discuss or have any questions about?
Yeah, just a quick comment to say thank you so much for providing that and for putting it in the packet. I know I myself have heard, comments from people who had taken the time to write letters and wondered when that was going to be included, so I really do appreciate it.
Okay, so unless there's anything else from our partners in respect to this item, I'm gonna move us on. Okay, so we are at, again, just correct me if I'm wrong, we are at the question period, okay? I know we have one.
Can I just go back on that? just
Of
quickly?
course.
Sorry, there's a minor error. I think in the 2026-27 budget development process document on page 276. Just that first line. Final budget development process presented to official trustee for approval November 24th, 2026. That would just be board of trustees rather than official trustee. Because that'll be, okay, that's close in that election, so that would be board at that time.
Thank you, just, okay, thank you for catching on. Are we okay to move on to the question period? I'm just having a look, okay, just might take me a second.
Yeah, I'll just check that. I don't believe in the one in the box, but I'll check.
Okay, okay. Okay, so we're gonna do question period, so this is a 15-minute portion of our meeting, and this sort of it allows members of the public to ask questions that they have. The way that it works is, if we can answer the question in the meeting, so either myself as board chair or one of our members of our senior leadership team can answer a question, we will do that. If we cannot provide an answer this evening, then we will go back to the individual, provide the answer when we can. Each requester can ask one question. And so if there's a request that or questions come in as multiple questions, what I will do is I will take the first question in the list of questions and address that. Okay, so we're gonna move through with the first one. And it is, given the province's decision to quash the orders removing the SD 61 trustees after acknowledging that the ministry failed to provide all necessary documents, will the reinstated trustees receive compensation or reimbursement for the period during which they were removed from office and unable to carry out their elected duties? I think I can answer this one for the individual. So the answer is yes. The province agreed as part of the judicial review process and the consent order that was agreed to provide back pay. So basically the stipends that trustees would have received during the period will be funded by the province. In addition, the province also agreed to fund the cost of the special advisor and full indemnity cost. So to clarify, so there's no room for misinterpretation, we managed to get a consent agreement with the province so that the school district does not bear any of the costs of this situation. So yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so the next one, I'm gonna be moving in reverse order, so we'll get to all of them, I think, because we have plenty of time. What parent group was included in the informal meeting with the board, local First Nations, union members? I'm not entirely sure what this question is referring to. Perhaps we can go back to the requester and just seek some clarification and respond to them offline. Yeah, because I'm really not sure what that means. Thank you. Okay, and the next question is what qualifies a student for having an ASL interpreter? Associate Superintendent Arts, are you able to provide that?
I will have to add to this questionnaire with the exact details on what qualifies for an ASL interpreter.
Okay.
So our learning team downstairs provide that information.
Okay, okay, so we'll come back to the requester, and the way we do that is we provide them a response in writing. Thank you. We'll be able to come back to them this week. Is that right, Associate Superintendent? Yeah, we will endeavor to come back to them this week.
Yeah, should not take comment.
Yeah.
That's that quite easy.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much. Okay, and then the last question, subject to Associate Superintendent Arts correcting me, is what parent group was included in the informal, oh, sorry. I think this might be the same one, forwarded twice. Let me just double check.
Can I help with that maybe? I read online, our stakeholders meeting. They were, that was being called an informal meeting, so I'm wondering if that's what they're referring to. Like that, yeah, oh, sorry, the partners meeting, yeah, that was, I kept reading that as an informal meeting.
So I think this one, thank you, Sean. I think that this, I think this question was forwarded twice, but would you mind just double checking that I'm right on that? It looks like it's been duplicated and just forwarded to me twice.
That's my error, it's only in here once, you have a choice.
Okay. No, that's great. I just want to make sure I wasn't making a mistake. Okay. And so, yeah. So, the question again with that context is what parent group was included in the informal meeting with the board for local First Nations union members? So if the individual is referring to the partners table meeting, then again, we would have our local DPAC representative in that forum. And again, I'll turn to staff to make sure that I am correct. So BC PAC would be represented.
That's correct.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is correct and the right context and wonderful. And if not, I trust that we can clarify with the requester. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so that concludes our question period for this evening. Oh yeah, Secretary Treasurer.
I'm not sure this is appropriate, but I wouldn't mind just going back to the question that trustee Gang had about the budget development process. That was November 2025. So it is. Yeah, but it's part of the
Oh,
year.
so
budget
yeah,
is
so there's
26.
26, 27 budget. Yeah.
Just one that one.
All right.
I thought this was a future document going on
Yeah.
for the next budget.
No.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
It's always like a year ahead of what you think.
Okay, thank you.
Sort of. Sure.
Associate Superintendent, yeah, go
I
ahead.
sent one twice by accident, there was another question I sent you, there
Oh.
was through separate emails, and I sent one twice instead.
Oh, okay, so there was a different requester. Okay, just 1 second. Oh, it's okay. We'll get there. Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, so this one is, as a member of the public in the gallery, I'd like to let the board know that the ability to access this meeting audibly was very poor. Would you consider ensuring both accessibility for ASL is streamlined and also the ability to hear a meeting in the gallery is improved / possible in the future? I think we can unequivocally agree that there's some work to do and that we'll endeavor to make that a high priority. So thank you to the requester. And I think we should really, when we do have a solution, we will share that publicly so that folks know. Thank you very much. And that's it for the email. We're good? Okay. Okay, we have a question in the gallery. Hello, welcome.
Point of order, and I would like to ask if the answers to those questions will be just to the person who emailed it in, or will it be online or the public?
In the question, good question. Former trustee would have started. Lovely to see you. And so, yeah, good question. So, it'll be like on the record in terms of the fact that this meeting is being recorded and anybody can tune in and listen to the audio recording. In terms of it being on the record, it will also be in the minutes of the meeting.
No, the questions that you're not answering, that they're going to
Oh.
come back to.
Right, yes, no, that's a good question. And I'm gonna turn to staff to answer that one, because I don't believe our bylaw addresses that. I don't think our bylaw actually requires us to report through the minute or in any other fashion other than to the requester. But Secretary Treasurer, correct me if I'm wrong. No, it's been a while since I looked at that bylaw. Okay,
If it's not answered in the meeting, then respond back to the.
and so there's nothing, yeah. Okay, so to answer your question, if it's responded to outside of the board meeting where it's minuted and it's recorded, it would be just to that individual requester according to the way that the bylaw is currently drafted.
So we should ask that question next time again.
That would be one approach to making sure it got into the public record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Okay, so, just want to double check. There's no more questions in our question period. We're good? Okay. I'm gonna move us on to the next part of our agenda then. This is the public disclosure of in-camera items. We have a number of items, at G1 through G4. And then there is one item under G4, that I have to disclose publicly today. Let me just go to that. Okay, so the following motion. Be it resolved that, one, the board directs all district staff and employees of the board to retain any and all records in their power, possession, or control relating to any district operations or business from January 1st, 2024 onward. Two, for the avoidance of doubt, the effect of this resolution is that any ordinary district records deletion policy shall not be applied while this resolution is in force. Three, for the further avoidance of doubt, a record is any means of storing information in electronic, mechanical, hard copy, or any other form, including but elements, but not limited to, by way of examples only, letters, emails, text messages, voicemails, documents, instant messenger communications, photographs, and other computer files or other papers. And four, this resolution shall continue in force until further resolution of the board. And further, that confidential in-camera motion be reported out at the June 15th, 2026 regular board meeting. Okay. So the next item on our agenda is new business. We have one item, I know, under H1. Trustee Kwan, I'm going to turn the floor over to you to first and foremost read the motion into the record.
Pardon me. So my suggested motion is that the Board of Education of Greater Victoria School District number 61 direct the superintendent to reallocate funding for the 2026-2027 school year to restore the following programs. Middle school music in the amount of $132,800. Pathways and Partnerships, Career Centers, $160,000 and $160,500. And Early Childhood Educators, or ECEs, in kindergarten classes for $80,000. And further, that the funding reallocation be taken sequentially from the following sources. One, additional funds raised through the Mount Dad Students Fundraiser to be applied exclusively to the middle school music allocation. 100% reduction in trustee expenses, office and supply budgets. Three, a 30% reduction in the office and supply budgets for district administration and district departments. And four, the district's accumulated surplus, if necessary, to cover any remaining balance. And further report back to the board how much will be taken from these four sources. And I'll send that to you, Secretary Treasurer.
Okay. Right, so I'm going to open the floor up. That's coming to you, Secretary Treasurer. I'll just give you a moment to read that. And while Secretary Treasurer is reading that, Trustee Kwan, can I trouble you to read it one more time, just so that I can open the floor for discussion with our partners and the board? Oh, wonderful. So maybe we have actually, we can put it on the screen. That would be helpful too. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind starting back off.
Connection. Okay, let me see if I can get it. Okay, I think I have it here. Sorry, so that the board, the motion is that the Board of Education of Greater Victoria School District number 61 direct the superintendent to reallocate funding for the 2026-2027 school year to restore the following programs. Middle school music for $132,800. Pathways and Partnerships Career Centers for $160,500. And Early Childhood Educators, ECEs, in kindergarten classes for $80,000. And further, that the funding reallocation be taken sequentially from the following sources. One, additional funds raised through the Mount Dad Student Fundraiser to be applied exclusively to the middle school music allocation. Two, a 100% reduction in trustee expenses of office and supply budgets. Three, a 30% reduction in the office and supply budgets for district administration and district departments. And four, the district's accumulated surplus, if necessary, to cover any remaining balances. And further report back to the board how much will be taken from these four sources.
All right, thank you, Trustee Kwan. Okay, so I'm going to look for a mover and a seconder, first and foremost, moved by Trustee Kwan and then seconded by Trustee Carmichael. Okay, so we're going to open the floor for discussion. I'm going to first turn to our partners. Any discussion? We can also.
Yeah. Happily shocked. Yeah.
You've gone very informal at this time of night. Sorry. It's 10 o'clock and I promised we'd be ready to turn before 10:30, but this is important. Yeah.
I'll just say I have three people, sorry, you didn't, sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm stopping myself because I just realized that our staff perhaps needed to clarify something more.
Oh, you know what it is? It's because I lost connectivity, sorry. I should have done Wi-Fi. Well, I tethered to my phone and I ran out of battery without me noticing, because I do have a charger for it, so I will try to get connectivity and, but do you have something? Or that you can send, or?
No, I was just gonna say.
So we'll get
that
those
I have
copies.
it.
Okay. In the meantime, if it's okay, we'll get that sorted out. I'm gonna go back,
I just, that saves me layoffs that we're gonna go out this week, so if that passes.
it's good to know.
Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm happily surprised, honestly.
In a good way. Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, what am I supposed to say? You're not obliged here. But yeah, I'll have some questions around how practice that might happen.
Yeah.
Because there's been probably some staffing
Yeah.
changes, so.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. And I think that would be the biggest thing here is figuring out how that works, and so that was kind of why I wanted your feedback on it too.
Yes. Any other comments at this stage from partners? Subject to obviously, like, there's gonna be some staffing, like being able to staff the positions, obviously is one aspect of this. But we're hopeful that, you know, we're not at the end of June, and so that it's possible. So let me just see if I can help, just to even just get it so that Secretary Turner has it. Bear with me 1 second. And if there's any other comments, please feel free, the floor is open. And also colleagues, if there's any comments from you, I'll see if I can get this to Secretary Turner.
It's okay, I think I got it, yeah. I got it, I'm just waiting now for it to show up here.
So, because I can type it up.
Well, it's in transit, that I lost my. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Where is it? Why not? Do you want me just to type it up and get it to the Secretary Turner?
Okay, see if it's on up here.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
You want to read it one more time?
Just need Karen's hotspot.
Okay, so it should be. That's what it is. Where is it? Okay.
Trustees, while we're waiting for the motion to get to the Secretary Treasurer, is there anything that you wanted to say or discuss? I think our partners have spoken. But again, there's plenty of room if any partners have not spoken and they wish to, please feel free. Are we good? We've got a connection?
Yeah, I speak in favor to the motion. These are priorities that, you know, we've heard from the community over and over and over again. So kind of anything that we can try to do to support these programs. I want to.
Yeah, thank you, Trustee Bio. Anybody else wish to speak? I got it. Oh, okay, wonderful. Okay, again, going back to trustees, is there anything else, anybody would like to speak to? We have, you reported Deb Luber in the Secretary Treasurer. There's Trustee Kwan moving and then Trustee Carmichael seconding. Yeah, go ahead, question, yeah.
For the fundraising through the students, so we don't hold those funds.
No.
After businesses. Like, I know they wanted to put it towards music, so just want to make sure.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I know that, the teachers have been in touch with them, so they can probably, clarify how much it is and all of that, but,
They're in favor of the point. Yeah, and that is right, yeah. Secretary Treasurer, did you have any other points of clarification?
It's hard to say until we look at the amounts that are in those first two numbers, like how the third one. You say 30%, but it. Like, it will depend on what's left.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do we go on that if it's less than that?
Yeah,
But we can
Yeah, and I think the intention is, get, correct me if I'm wrong, trustee Kwan, is that whatever shortfall will come from the surplus.
Yeah, and if I may just add to that, I think the intention too is that those types of budgets, you know, when we do have a surplus during the year, those are kind of things that we can look at adding back in if there's a need for it. Whereas with student programming, it's really difficult to, you know, say we can add back in halfway through the year if we see have funds become available, so.
Yeah, I have some concerns about a lot of concerns with the fall.
Right.
Because they're so tight,
Right.
but particularly like a department like facilities, a 30% reduction is massive.
Right, so maybe do we need to put some flexibility in there to like look at it instead of just saying 30%? Yeah, okay.
I think,
Okay.
should we say up to 30%? So that there's some
Yeah.
discretion,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
based on analyzing what is possible, what is feasible.
Yeah, can we just do that as a friendly amendment? Or?
Let's just do it as a formal amendment, we'll look for, a mover and a seconder, so just to change the wording to up to 30%
Yeah.
when it comes to the supply budget, okay. So who would like to move that? Trustee Bayonne, seconded by trustee Kwan, okay. Okay, so we have an amendment to the motion, I'm gonna call the question on the amendment so that we can finish up and wrap up any discussion we wanna have, all those in favor of the amendment to the motion? That is unanimous, okay, so we're back to the main motion as amended, is there any further discussion? Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor with a show of hands? And that is unanimous. All right, thank you trustees, thank you the staff and to our partners for your contribution. Okay, so that leaves us to, do we have any notice of motions? Trustee Kwan?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it now because it's right at the beginning again, but I would like to make a notice of a motion to go to the policy Ed Policy Committee in September. And I'm just looking for it right now.
Okay. And then just so that you know, then after this is the adjournment.
Okay,
And you can all go home.
and then.
Sorry,
Sorry for keeping you walk, that's okay too, but. Okay, so the motion, the notice of motion is that the Board of Education of Greater Victoria School District number 61 direct the superintendent to collaborate with registered sign language interpreters, relevant employee groups and ministry partners to explore the design and implementation of permanent RSLI positions within an integrated team structure. And further, that the superintendent provide a progress update to the board by January 2027 regarding the status of these consultations and any proposed framework. Okay, so I'm gonna
And we'll get
that.
you an alternate copy.
Hopefully, right away,
No.
yeah.
You've got, no,
Yeah.
take advantage of that, okay. So subject to any questions about that notice of motion? Is it safe to call for adjournment? We're good to, yeah, okay, so. I'm gonna have a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Moved by trustee Gagnon and all the tradition that he normally would move it, and seconded by all those in favor of adjournment.